Hello everyone, this is your favorite Murtid live once again, and today we have our dear brother Lloyd with us. Hello, brother Lloyd.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me
Yeah,
on.
seems like my voice pitch is at 100 and you go all the way down to 10. Come on, man. Come up, come up.
Hello, everyone. How are you today?
Awesome. Now see that kind of like, that's like more of a equal pitch sound. All right, so we have quite a few people with us right now already. Dragan Atanaris, the old one, Dhar Dhar, and Net, and Historical Christianity, the old one, and Natalia, I think, if I'm pronouncing her name right. So, yeah, God bless you all. Welcome, share, and bring many other. This is a part two of some of a session that we did a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was busy and I was not able to invite Lloyd last week, and that is why it got delayed. And hence, I have placed the part one in the description as well already. So, in the description, if you scroll down, there are all the reference material which Lloyd is going to show, which he has presented in the past as well, some of it, and plus the part one video link. So this is part two, as you can see already, and we are going to go deep into the subject. I hope I will not try to bring any logic into it because as we have seen last time, unfortunately we cannot bring logic into these kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what is written. So we are going to show you what's written, and we're going to see certain things, how silly and ignorant those things will be. That's up to you guys to decide, right? So welcome, the rest of the team is here. We have a lot of good team. We have CD and Michael, Jason, Bossman. We have Bossman with us as well. So yeah, we have quite a number of people right now already. Brother, the mic and the set is yours.
Okay, yeah. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, this is part two. I'm discussing the research I've been doing on why Muslims hate St. Paul, why they have such a problem with St. Paul, why they had to attack St. Paul. This is it's a branch that I'm doing related to the concept of biblical corruption, the accusation by Muslims of the corruption of the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Right? So this is one branch of it and it's related to some others. And I've been doing some interesting work learning about the what is this Injil? This Injil they speak of in the Quran. Is it the New Testament? Is it not the New Testament? Is it some of the New Testament and some things that are not the New Testament? That's a question I've been working on. That's a lot of research I've been doing, and this is related to that. And in fact, there's an overlap between that and Paul. And yeah, these are questions that I'm trying to answer. So I'll be doing a lot more work on the concept of what's called Taḥrīf, biblical corruption. But Muslims had to attack Saint Paul because, and I will make this clear in the next. I'll be doing this on my channel at some point soon. But they had to attack Saint Paul because when they finally got hold of a copy of the Bible and read it, they discovered that all the claims that the Quran makes, that it is the continuation of the Torah and the continuation of the gospel, none of this was true. So they had to claim that the Bible was corrupted, and they picked St. Paul. And we went into detail on this. We obviously learned. So, shall I share my screen and just pick up from where we left off? Yeah, I think I'll just share then. And I will share my screen too. So I'm going to briefly go back before I do a recap, right? Hopefully my screen is being shared now. Okay, there we are. So, guys, I'm going to
I would
quickly
like
go.
to, sorry, brother, I would like to
Sure.
re-emphasize your point. I was speaking on mute. I'm sorry. I thought I was mute speaking.
Okay.
So I would like to re-emphasize this point already with the people that what you just told everyone is that they were trying to pick an scapegoat. So because the Quran affirms and confirms the Torah and the Injil, so they had to pick an
Right.
scapegoat. That scapegoat was supposedly Paul because the writing of the Paul are absolutely clear. The thing is, when we are talking about writing, how a Muslim can understand, even though all of the writings are clear, but for Muslims to comprehend, you need to have the writings in such way. And as we all know, that Paul was the apostle who was writing for the Gentiles. So he
Hmm.
was writing in the language which was acceptable to the Gentiles according to their understanding. There are a lot of writings in the Bible which are written for the Jews of that time and for the people of that time who knew Torah. Those writings are catering to the Jews so that they would comprehend and they would understand. Whereas certain writings of the Paul is all about for the Gentiles, so he uses a different terminology. And hence, Muslims attacked Paul as an scapegoat. I hope I made myself a little clear on that particular subject.
No, I think that's well said. Yeah, don't forget, Paul was a very strong Jewish scholar. He was supposed to be next in line to be the chief rabbi, right? So he really knew the Torah extremely well. Now, this what I have here is one of the reasons I'm going to show you. This is part of additional research. I'm covering it in the other show that I'm busy working on, as I said, other presentation, because my research is what is this Taḥrīf accusation? And I'm looking at the history of the Bible in the Middle East, right? I'll touch on some of that, but there's more upcoming in the near future. So, for instance, here's an example of the problem, right, to highlight. And this is very much related to Paul. So now we'll see how they link up, how Paul is linked to this accusation of corruption. Now, it says in Quran 9:111, which proved to be a problem for the Muslims. This particular verse, there are many others too, but this one proved to be a problem for them. Indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties. In exchange for that, they will have paradise. They fight in the cause of Allah, jihad. So they kill and are killed. It is a true promise binding upon Allah in the Torah and the Gospel, the Injil, and the Quran. Now, this particular verse, this particular verse becomes clear when you remember that I said that they claimed that St. Paul had 3 visions, well, 4, but he had 3 visions. And in the 3rd vision, he said that the jihad had to be abandoned by the Christians and that the Christians should now, instead of jihad, turn the other cheek. So he removed the obligation of jihad from the Christians. Now, Adam, is there any obligation of jihad, of Islamic jihad, in either the Torah or the New Testament?
Brother, if there is another Bible that I don't know of, then maybe it is. But the Bible that I have not seen it.
Correct. There is no such record in biblical history. So understand, because the Quran says that there is a promise of jihad, that Christians and Jews must kill and be killed for Allah. But when they finally read the Torah, when they finally actually read the Injil, they discovered no such thing. So they could not justify their violent jihad. So they blamed Paul for coming up with these visions, and Paul had apparently edited the Bible and removed the jihad and told Christians, you must turn the other cheek. That is why, as I explained last week, they had to come up with that story of Paul turning the other cheek. Does that make sense, Adam?
Oh, it does. It does. So Paul gave the story of turning the other cheek versus the other way around. Okay. That's an
Correct.
interesting ideology.
Right. So let me move now to. Okay. So now I'm going to go to. Okay. I need to cancel this one, and we're going to go here. All right. Let me take that away. And okay, I went too little. I need to go to a different slide. So,
You're acting like a Muslim today.
excuse me. I might just have to revive the jihad and come and make a little visit. And instead of I'm going to turn the other cheek today, though. I'm going to turn the other cheek.
Ah,
Okay.
okay. All right.
I'm gonna do what St. Paul said. Um, Yep, so I'll go into more detail on that. Now, remember, I mentioned that there's a confusion between St. Paul and a man known as Paul of Samosata. It's actually Samosata, right? I made a little typo here. I'll fix that another time. So the Islamic scholars confuse Paul with Paul of Samosata. This is where we ended up last time, who's also known
Yes.
as Bulus al-Shimshati. Now, he was the bishop of Antioch in the year 260. He, however, became a heretic. He blended 2 heresies, right? And his heresy was called the Paulianist heresy, which is why Muslims claim Paul was a heretic, because the heresy named after this Bulus al-Shamshati, or Paul of Samosata, is the Paulinist heresy, right? The Pauline heresy,
And yes,
right?
I was last time I was really shocked, like because that was the first time that I knew about this that they mixed it up, and I was
Yeah.
shocked. But like today, the shock is not that much because I already know what happened last time. So guys needs to watch the part one as well. How Muslim confuse a third century guy with a first century guy.
Yeah, and on top of that, remember we discussed last week how they confused him with King Saul. So
Hmm.
Paul was king of the Jews, and Paul killed himself like Saul, like King Saul, right? Because his name was
Yes,
Saul, and Muslims can't tell the difference between King Saul and Saint Paul.
Saul.
Yeah, and Saul, who became Paul, right? And of course, they claim that Saul was Paul, Saint Paul, was the king of the Jews, and he left his kingdom. He left being king of the Jews to become a Christian and killed himself as an act of sacrifice to Jesus to destroy Christianity. Does that sound sane?
Yeah, and I had the same question. How would you kill yourself to save Christianity? Like I had the same question, I
Destroy
think.
Christianity? Yeah, it's just insane. Okay, so understand. So they blame. So some of the scholars blame Paul of Samosata for being the one who first spoiled the religion of the Christians, and other Islamic scholars claim the very same thing with Saint Paul. Right? So there's that confusion. So now I'll go back here. So Shahrastani, I will do a revision. We will do a recap in a minute. Now, the view of Shahrastani, very, very important Islamic scholar. Okay. And in his Kitāb, al-milal wa-al-niḥal, again, he gets confused with Paul. Now, remember, in the Kitāb, milal wa-al-niḥal, they have to elevate Muhammad because they want to bring Jesus down, right, to just being a regular human, right, who was giving the good news of Muhammad, right? Just like John the Baptist was the person who was waiting for and talking about proclaiming the coming of Jesus. Jesus was the man who's like the John the Baptist of Muhammad, proclaiming the coming of Muhammad, right? And Shahrastani, as we mentioned, writes, long before the creation of the world, Allah took a ray of light from the splendor of his own glory and united it to the body of Muhammad. So Muhammad's body was created before the world was created. This is a very common theme in the Sirah, the Islamic Gospels of Muhammad. We call them the biographies, but they are the Gospels of Muhammad, saying, Muhammad, you are the elect, the chosen. I will make the members of thy family the guides to salvation. This is what God says to Abraham. Any comment, Adam?
Yeah, for the light part. So guys who have not watched the video of Brother Lloyd, it's called Seal of the Prophets. There are 3 videos, and by the way, I made a playlist where all the Lloyd's videos are. So you can go to the playlist
Awesome.
of Lloyd in my channel, and you can see the seal of the prophet. And Lloyd actually went into detail from different seerahs about this light and Muhammad thingy. So, and Somali Christian TV, brothers and sister, God bless you. Welcome to the channel. Especially welcome to you guys because guys, these 2 murtads of Islam, they are bringing a tsunami in Somalia, and
Welcome, guys.
keep them in the prayers. And they have multiple threats, death threats, so keep them in your prayer, guys.
All right. Now, understand, Muhammad said the first thing which Allah created was my light and my spirit. So Muhammad is the first thing that Allah created long before the creation. And in fact, in those other seerah, I explain and I show that many, many scholars claim that the earth and the universe were made for Muhammad. The reason Allah made the universe and made the earth was for Muhammad, right? They make this claim and they make many other outrageous claims of that nature. So now we know, okay? So we've discussed this before. Now, a couple of things. Remember that they say that Paul spoke to, remember they say that Paul created the 3 Christian churches, the Jacobites, the Nestorians, and the Melkites. And he spoke to Jacob and he spoke to Nestor. Remember that? We said that in the
Hmm.
last episode.
Yes.
Now, the Jacobites and the Nestorians and the Melkites are from the 4th and the 5th centuries. In other words, 400 years, 500 years after Paul died. So, would you agree that Muhammad is obviously then a time traveler?
No,
Who, at least
brother.
St. Paul was a time traveler?
Brother, you don't understand. You don't have the history. Muslims have the history, brother.
So, Paul was a time traveler, or, or the
He lived
Melkites,
for
the
500
Jacobites,
years.
and Nestorian were time travelers because Paul spoke to Nestor. Nestor lived in the 4th or the 5th century, 400 years after Paul died. But somehow Paul is talking to these guys. You explain that to me. I'm just reading this stuff and
Brother,
thinking,
he lived for 400 years, man. Come on. The
he
logical
did. He
conclusion.
did. Paul lived for at least 500 years. Yes, you're right. You're right. And notice here that they make the claim. So we covered this last week. I'm just covering it again, just briefly. So notice that they do make the claim that, so Paul was a bad Jew, and then also Paul was a bad Christian. The conflicting stories by the Islamic scholars. And they say that due to the conflict with the Jews after he became a Christian, Paul looked for protection from the Romans. He went to the governor with the claim that he followed the religion of Caesar. At that time, the Romans were pagans, right? The Roman Empire only became Christian, I think, in the 3rd century. So now you're looking at, again, this is something that is 300 years out of date, somehow. Because Christianity was not the religion of the kingdom in the beginning of the, or the middle of the 1st century.
Another
So
historical blunder.
another historical blunder, a major historical blunder, and there are just so many of them. So let me continue. Right now, of course, so we will skip this, and I will now go to. I want to go to Bart Ehrman. Can I play this on Bart Ehrman? This might be very interesting for people. Is that
Please,
all right?
brother. Yeah.
This is about 4 minutes of video. We could interrupt whenever you want to, but Muslims always rely on Bart Ehrman as one of their major scholars to refute Christianity. However, Bart Ehrman disagrees with everything that Islam says about St. Paul. And also, Bart Ehrman doesn't believe that Islam is true either. How come Muslims never quote Bart Ehrman when they talk about Islam?
Because they only pick up what they like, not the one that they do not like. But before we move forward, I have a guy in the
Yeah.
chat. His name is Sayyid somebody. Shah Sayyid. So he is Shah and Sayyid. So Sayyid, stick in, watch, and to the Christian guys, don't get in debate with him. These information is necessary when you're talking with these people. So learn, understand, and we will give a link to Sayyid later if he has something to refute on this point. Brother, please play.
Right. So let's see. This is 3 minutes long. So let's listen to what Bart Ehrman has to say about St. Paul. Now, he claims that Paul did not invent Christianity, and he defends the Christian view of Paul. All right?
No voice, brother. You have to
Okay,
share
do
it
I
the
need to...
differently. Yeah,
Let me...
share it with voice
With the...
checkbox. Yes.
Okay, so share screen, and let me share system audio. Yes, clicked. Back to screen 2. Then I will start again.
All right, let me add it again. There you go, brother.
If you had to line all the apostles up, I get the vibe that for you, Paul is the cornerstone of the whole story.
Well, the reason I think he is somewhat different from what a lot of people say. Some people say that Paul invented Christianity, and that can't be true because Paul was persecuting Christians before he became a Christian. And so if he invented Christianity, he would have had nobody to persecute.
Your thoughts on that? If Paul had invented Christianity, why was he persecuting Christians before Christianity was invented?
Absolutely. He was a devout Jew, as we know already. He knew the Jewish scriptures inside out. He was persecuting Christian. He was killing Christian. He was gathering forces from his area, and he was persecuting them. So even the first martyr of Christ, the first apostle who died by stoning to death. What was his name? I forgot, man.
Philip?
Come on.
Was it Philip?
Yeah,
Can't remember, yeah.
who was stoned to
Yeah.
death. The historians write that Paul was there, and so apparently he did all that. And then at the time when he was actually going, according to the Acts of Apostle, he was going, and on his way he received the vision of of Jesus, and that was Stephen. Thank you, everyone.
Yes,
Uh,
Stephen, yeah.
he received the vision of Jesus, and that vision, the bright vision, blinded him. So
Right.
before that time, even it was on the way, on the road to persecute Christians when this happened. So apparently he had no mean
Yeah.
or no
Which is
reason.
why they claim, which is why also in the anti-Paul narrative in Islam, they claim that he had this vision and then he came up with 3 false visions. And one of those was where he tells Christians to face to the east for their, that's the new Christian Qibla. I have the reasons for that as well. That's in a different set of slides. He then tells them, because there's a tradition in the church of facing to the east. However, east doesn't always mean literal east. East was kind of where the altar was located, but east just really means pray towards the altar, right? And then, of course, he abandons the jihad. So they made up narratives to explain these away as well. Shall we just go on? I'll just play more.
Yes, sir.
So that's not right. And it's not right that he invented the idea that Jesus' death and resurrection brought about salvation, because that's what Christians were saying before him. The thing that made Paul really key, as I argue in this book, is that he realized that followers of Jesus, this Jewish Messiah sent from the Jewish God to the Jewish people, followers of Jesus did not have to become Jewish. You could be a converted pagan and believe in Jesus and in the God of Jesus, but you didn't have to adopt the ways of Judaism.
Now, a couple of points there. Did you pick up those points, Adam? That he says, Bart Ehrman says that Paul didn't invent the idea of Jesus as Christ, as divinity, because Christians were already saying that. And Muslims love Bart Ehrman.
Yep. And they supposedly use Bart Ehrman.
Yes. Let's continue.
And this realization made it possible for Christianity to move away from being a sect within Judaism to being a worldwide religion. And if that hadn't happened, then Christianity would have ended up with the kind of historical significance of other Jewish sects. And they'd be as historically significant as the Sadducees or the Essenes, who, you know.
So see, Paul made Christianity into a worldwide religion. It wasn't just because prior to Paul, they were simply preaching to the Jews. Paul said, no, wait, we have to make this to everyone. We have to preach to the Gentiles. And he made Christianity into the worldwide religion. So can you see now why they had to oppose Paul?
Absolutely. It is very clear that it goes against everything that these guys have been told. And then, Paul is the one, according to Bart Ehrman.
Yes, and let's continue.
Which are groups that are important for historians of ancient religion, but they're not exactly the sorts of things people worry about these days. And so he made it possible for Christianity to become what it did, which is the dominant religion of the empire.
Wow.
Paul and Constantine were the two most significant converts in the history of Christianity. And it's an easy case to make with both of them, actually, because without Paul, you wouldn't have had Christianity as a worldwide movement. And Constantine, I mean, he was the emperor. This is like the emperor converted.
Any comment on that? I'll pause for a moment. Any comment?
Yeah, because like he, as a outsider, he can say certain stuff, but fair enough. I won't comment on that.
Okay, let's continue then. Yeah.
Because he's already an outsider.
How do you get from Paul is sending a letter to Corinth, some guidance and instruction, perhaps even correction, to this is a message that should be embraced by the entire world for all of posterity? I mean, that's just, it blows your mind.
Well, yeah, probably would have blown his mind too. I mean, he certainly had a high view of himself and he had a high view of his authority. But the idea that people would look upon these occasional letters that he wrote as being, given by God, that's quite a shift. But it's because the early Christians who were deciding what is the right thing to believe and what are the right ways to behave, especially in the decades and centuries after Paul, they had to find some authorities to direct their actions and their beliefs. And they ended up saying Paul is the one who directs our actions. And so he takes on a kind of authority that he didn't have in his own day.
Okay. Now, this last part is very, very important. So as an outsider, like I said, because a lot of his letters were written to the Gentiles, they become very clear as opposed to the ones which are written to the Jews themselves. So Bart Ehrman is saying certain things which I do not agree with. I obviously think that everyone in the live chat who are Christians will not agree with, but yet at the same time, he is agreeing to the fact that Paul preached to Gentiles and Paul's letter were such beautifully written, let's just put it this way, that they influenced the church to a significant level. Because as Christians, we have already read the Bible inside out, and we all know that none of his letter opposes what is already there,
Correct.
said by Jesus or in the Gospels account. They are just
Correct.
explanation in a more explanatory way.
Yeah. So Bart Ehrman himself, this is the favorite apologist that the favorite of scholar of Islamic apologists. Even he says, "Sorry, Muslims, you're wrong." So,
Hey, why
and by
is
the
the
way,
skirt open? Why is the Kaaba naked, man? Come on.
yeah, I just wanted to let you know this is the most holy, the most beautiful, sacred shrine in the Islamic world. It's. I don't think that any of the Christian cathedrals can look this good.
Can
None of
match
it.
that without the skirt?
I
Like
don't think it's
like
possible.
like
This
this
is
is this
this
is
is the
this is
yeah.
haram, brother. You are showing the private part of the Kaaba, man. This is haram.
This is the most. This is beautiful, Adam. This is holy and beautiful, and we should all be so privileged as to see under that beautiful cloth. So yeah, I just thought I'd let everyone see. Yeah, this is looks like it needs a wash actually. Someone needs to get there with a brush and clean it. Okay, right. So recap. Okay, so we're going to learn again. So we've covered in the past, and we're going to learn today a few more things. So Paul was the king of the Jews. The Muslims confused the scholars, the major scholars. We're talking the Albert Einsteins, the top scholars of Islam, the Sir Isaac Newtons of the Islamic world couldn't tell the difference between King Saul and Paul, the apostle, right? They claimed that Christians followed Islam for 81 years after Jesus died. We went through that claim. Paul was a wicked, wicked Jew. He committed suicide to destroy Christianity. We also went through how the Jews, how the rabbis bribed Paul. Paul, who was the king of the Jews, but somehow the rabbis had more money than Paul, and they gave him money to go and to leave his post as the king and then go to the Christians and deceive them, right? Which makes no sense at all. And of course, that claim can be traced to where the rabbis explained to Pontius that they want Jesus killed because Pontius says he can find no sin. And the rabbis say that he has called himself the Son of God, and according to their law, he must be killed, and they will take the sin upon themselves. That's where we can trace that story. Then they claim that Paul's a good Christian, so they can't make up their minds whether he was a fake Christian and a real Jew or a real Christian and a fake Jew. I don't know. They influenced the Romans to destroy the Jews. They teach that Christians never thought that Jesus was divine. Paul invented this, so it was never in our Gospels before that. Bart Ehrman just destroyed that argument. Paul invented the Trinity. That is also not true. And now we'll look at things like Paul is responsible for the Crusades, which the kings did to defend Paul's lies because the Muslims were going to reveal the truth to Europe. And Muslims obviously saved Christ's true teachings. These are the sources that I have used, all linked in the description, right? These sources and others are all linked in the description. And I want to mention something just briefly because this comes up a lot as an aside. I want to say that, look, Islam, and we've had this discussion, is divided into two divisions and 4 levels of knowledge, right? You have the Sharia and the Haqiqah. The Sharia means just obeying Allah. So this is where one of these, like this guy that's in the comments here, wasting our time. This guy is just following the rules. And this is administered by the senior scholars, right? But the Haqiqah is knowing Allah, so they don't know Allah. Now you have the Zahir, which is the outer, the exoteric, for the masses Islam, and you have the Batin, the inner esoteric, the secret Islam, which is for the scholars. The outer meaning is also the outer practice, and also it is the first level of meaning. So when you read the Quran, it's the first level, the most obvious thing that you would assume when reading it. But there are many, many other levels of meaning above that. Then you have the inner, the direct, the personal knowledge or experience of Allah. That is the batin. That's the secret, the esoteric meanings, which are not rational. They're outside of your rational mind. You have to use certain rituals to step outside of your mind and get this in an intuitive, pre-rational and post-rational means. And that they have these practices they do. Then the 4 levels is the ibadah, the literal level, known as the zahir, and this is the level on which you'll find the Quran and Hadith. This is the lowest level of Islam. If the Quran and the Hadiths are on this level, that's because they are the lowest level of knowledge in Islam, the lowest level, okay? Basic level. Then you have the ishara, the implied level, the lataif, nuances, subtleties meant for the saints. Okay? And all saints in Islam are Sufis. The holiest people in Islam are the Sufis. Then you have the haqaiq, the reality, the truth, the divine essence. And this is something that apparently is only available to the prophets. And of course, but the Sufis, the major scholars, the upper level scholars are able to access this with time and with their magical rituals. The haqaiq is also known as the Muhammadan reality, because the Ruh Muhammad, the spirit of Muhammad, transmits divine knowledge to the prophets and to the Sufis, because Muhammad is the spirit of the world. I'll leave that there, unless you have anything
Wallahi.
to say.
Yeah, just to let certain people know that they should not confuse this with the sect of Islam called Sufi Islam. So that is different. This is different. These are the saints, the early saints who were in spiritualism, went way beyond and supposedly gained the knowledge. That's scholarly Sufis, which is different than the current Sufism who dances and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. That's actually very much condemned within the Sharia, because they're like called false Sufis. But the Sufis, the proper Sufis, to be a proper Sufi in Islam, you must be Sharia compliant. You must be fully compliant with Sharia. And then you learn the spiritual aspects. You learn then the haqiqah. Okay, the wali, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
And
what
yeah,
Gedalia actually sent. They are Waliullah. They are actually called Waliullah, Awliya Allah.
the friends of Allah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Awliya Allah. So yeah, these we are talking about when Lloyd is saying Sufis, we are talking about these kind of people. We are not talking about the Sufi sect of Islam, FYI.
Right. So moving on. So I just wanted to put that in there because that comes up a lot, and we've discussed that in the past. Now, let's look at the loss of the original Bible. Now, this is something I'm researching as well, separately, but let's have a look. In Quran 61:6, Isa, son of Maryam, said, "Children of Israel, I am the messenger of Allah unto you, confirming the Torah before me, and giving glad tidings of a messenger to come after me, whose name is Ahmad, the praised one." So they claim that Jesus had a copy of the original Torah, which descended on Moses 1500 years before him. So in other words, God gave Moses a book. The original Torah was lost, they claim, when Jerusalem was destroyed. 70 AD, the temple was destroyed. And they claim that the Jews took the copy and ran away, and no one has seen it since. And then, of course, they blame that another Jewish scholar went and rewrote a new Torah because they lost the original. Now, this claim is made by a scholar called Abu Ubaidah in 636 approximately. Okay, so it seems to be that's around about the time that he made this claim.
So Jesus had the original Torah,
Apparently so.
and so where can we find that?
Now, one interesting question is that if we look into this whole concept of the Injil, which remember, Muhammad had the Torah brought to him, people read to him, people owned it, people apparently had. So the Torah we know is very, very old. So why did, if the Torah confirmed the Quran, why did Muhammad not preserve the Torah? If it was so important, and it's the true book of Allah, and the Muslims revere and protect the books of Allah, which can never be destroyed by man or whatever, right? Because Allah will preserve his word. Why did Muhammad never preserve the Torah, Adam?
I don't know, brother. That's the question, because like what you are saying is you are actually referring to chapter number 6, verse number 34 of Quran, where Allah says nobody can change the words of Allah. And
Right.
then Allah claims by himself in Quran chapter number 15, verse number 9, that indeed we have revealed it and we are its guardian. So Torah in multiple locations in Quran are called the zikr of Allah. Zikr, the zikr of Allah. And Allah says, Inna nahnu nazzalna zikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. Indeed, we have sent the zikr and we are its guardian. So Allah was very false guardian of his own zikr.
So if Muhammad had it, and he says that the Christians then had it between their hands, and he had it, and he had it read to him, why do they not have a copy? Why do they make claims, but they don't have a copy? Why did they not keep?
Ask Abu Ubaidah. No.
Right. Where are the original bones that the Quran was written on? The wood, the bones, the things that. Where are they?
The jinn ate the bones. That is why Muhammad said, "Do not eat the bones, because this is the This is the food of the jinns. So
Did
those are the
someone eat the
jinns.
bones? Did someone eat the bones with jinn? Did you say with jinn?
No, jinn. Not the gin that you drink as in the liquor. The
Ah,
jinn, the
sorry.
genies. So
I'm a
Muhammad
little
had
slow
genies,
tonight.
remember? Muhammad had genies, and the food of the genies is the bones.
So you're saying
So
Muhammad was a genius? Okay, sorry, enough kidding around. Okay, now understand also the Injil. Now, the claim of the Injil, they claim that the Injil confirms the Quran. Where is the original Injil? Muslims
that
claim they
confirms the
had it.
Quran.
Where is it? Why did they not keep a copy? So anyway, so now they say in their story, in the Islamic story, Jesus is not bringing a new way of life, Christianity. They say that Jesus is just confirming the original Torah. However, in the story by Abu Ubaidah and others, he's not the Torah written 500 years after Moses by a man called Rabbi Ezra. So the Muslims now
Ah,
claim the Torah was rewritten by a rabbi called Rabbi Ezra. Now, the source of this claim, oddly enough, okay, actually goes back to a heretic, a man called Baruch Spinoza. Now, he's a biblical critic, and he's actually a medieval scholar. And Rabbi Ezra is one of the most distinguished Jewish biblical commentators and philosophers of the Middle Ages, who also happened to be excommunicated by both the Jews and the church.
and you know
The
what?
Jews,
I
yeah,
think why they are saying Rabbi Ezra is because of chapter number 9, verse number 31.
why?
Because the Jews says that Ezra is the son of Allah. You know, so nobody knows. The Ezra word in Quran is came once only. And according to
Oh,
Quran,
okay.
Allah says, Jews says that Ezra is the son of Allah. And I think that these Muslims are now trying to figure out why would Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, even though no Jew says Ezra is the son of Allah. But
Correct.
you know, I think they are trying to make sense of Quran. You know.
Correct. Yeah, and I would say so. Now, so this is a claim that's been going around since the 630s that the original Torah, okay, and Jesus didn't bring. Now, remember, some scholars are saying we misinterpreted the Bible. Other scholars are saying the Bible was edited. These are two separate claims. They're two conflicting claims. Some are saying changed. Some are saying misread, which means we have the original Bible, we're misreading it, and others are saying it was edited. Eventually, they had to decide on edited. But when? Now, some scholars are saying at the beginning, and some scholars are saying after Jesus died. Some are saying, sorry, no. Some are saying after a certain period. When we dealt with Ibn Ḥazm, he was saying it was done after the death of Muhammad. My bad. Okay? So this is after the death. So these claims, again, there's no consistency in this claim. So let's have a look. Al-Masudi and Ibn Kathir. Now, ignoring the dissension between the Islamic scholars, right, who were discussing the continuity between the prophets, between Jesus and so on, al-Masudi, who died in the year 956, says, the people of the period between Christ and Muhammad were monotheists and professed the resurrection. So he actually claims that the Christians were monotheists who professed the resurrection, which is a very interesting point for him to make, right?
Exactly.
Now, Ibn Kathir identifies followers of a man called Abdullah ibn Adius. Now, I've looked for this guy and I can't find him. This man seems completely fictional, who believed that Jesus was only a servant and a messenger of Allah. Now, they settled in deserts and wastelands. They built hermitages, monasteries, and cells. They lived a very simple life and did not mix with other sects who believed in the heretical Trinitarian doctrines and introduced innovations. So he's saying that the original Christians, now, in this case, he's looking at, obviously, these were the heretics. Abdullah. Now, if this is before Allah, then who's this Allah they were worshipping? Now, obviously, they'll have to claim that Yahweh is Allah, when clearly this is not the case. So this is the story of Ibn Kathir. Any comment on this?
No, brother, there are so many names in the Islamic narrative by Ibn Kathir which does not have any historical presence, and this is one of them.
Right. So now let's continue. Now, interesting. Quran 31:13, and let's look and see what else Ibn Kathir has to say to us. Right. So let's look at this verse here. Now, they speak of the town called Antioch, Antakya, right? And the people of the city, when those sent from Allah came unto them. Okay. So in this verse, it says that Allah sent messengers to Antioch.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's telling a historical story, right? Now, the
And
story of
basically the
the
next verse and the next verse says when we send them two and then we strengthen them with a third.
third, yes, correct. Now, the story of the dwellers of the town and their messengers, a lesson that those who belied their messengers were destroyed. Now, this is very interesting. Okay, Allah says, "O Muhammad, tell your people who disbelieve in you, the dwellers of the town, when there came messengers to them, in the reports that he transmitted from Ibn Abbas, blah 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 names. Ibn Ishaq reported that it was the city of Antioch, in which there was a king called Antiochus, the son of Antiochus, the son of Antiochus, very, very precise, who used to worship idols. And Allah sent to him 3 messengers whose names were Sadiq, Saduk, and Shalom, and he disbelieved in them. It was also narrated from Buraidah bin al-Husayb, Ikramah, Qatada, and Azuri that it was Antioch. So modern scholars now say it couldn't have been Antioch because Antioch was the Christian place, and now they're talking about Antioch being destroyed because it wasn't a Christian place. So there's a little conflict happening there as well. But some of the Imams were not sure that it was Antioch, as we shall see after telling the story, if Allah wills. You know what? I may have, oh no. You know what I might have got? Give me 1 second. I think I forgot to change that slide.
Allah wills.
I have made a wrong mistake again.
You always do that. That's okay.
You know.
Okay, brother, in the meantime, we have a super chat. Let me take the super chat and you can take your time. And it says, thank you for all your work, Lloyd and Adam. God bless you. It is from the Macho Nacho. And we have a $5 super chat. Thank you, brother. And
Right.
and Gidaya is saying, I think it is Surah Yasin. Yes, Surah Yasin 36, chapter number 36.
Yeah, let me see, what have I done wrong here? Yeah, I've definitely made a wrong mistake somewhere. Let me see what it is I've done, because I need to fix this. Give me 1 moment. I thought I had checked this, so I'm just going to make 2 blank pages and just drop that in there.
You can go to the tafsir of 36:14. It will show you that. And when we sent them 2, but they denied, so we strengthened him with the third, and they said, indeed, we are messenger to you. Chapter number 36, verse number 14. Do you want me to open Ibn Kathir tafsir on that?
I've got the notes here. I'll be done in a second. My bad. I thought
No
I
worries.
tested this, but I've been updating it. I've been making updates. So okay, here I am again.
That is okay.
So yeah, so I'm going to have this out of sequence. Okay. Good grief. Okay, so in Tafsir Ibn Kathir, right? You've got this story. Let's see. So that, let me just go here. Okay, so this is Tafsir Ibn Kathir. Okay, now let's have a look at the bottom. So, because I made a mistake here. So, when we sent to them 2 messengers, they denied them both. And Ibn Kathir says that this means that they hastened to disbelieve in them. They would not accept these 2 messengers. So, Allah reinforced these Christians with a third, means we supported and strengthened them with a third messenger. Ibn Jurayri narrated that the names of the first 2 messengers were Shamun, Simon, and Yohanna, John. The name of the third was Bulus, Paul, and the city was Antioch. Okay, now interestingly, now Ibn Kathir 1106 refers to refers to Simon, John, and Paul. However, interestingly, Ibn Kathir considers it not plausible that the city referred to as Antioch, because amongst other reasons, Antioch was historically a strong base for Christianity, whereas the Quran records the city in question as being destroyed for its unbelief. So there's already a conflict with the historical record, with both the biblical record and the historical record, right? Now, oddly enough, there's another scholar called Ryan Spich, a Western scholar, who notes that the origins of this tradition of Paul as one of the 3 messengers to Antioch comes from the apocryphal book Acts of Peter. And in this book, of course, and Muslims also accuse Peter similarly to the way they accuse Paul. So this story actually comes from an apocryphal book. So it would seem that this story is borrowed, or this narrative is borrowed from an apocryphal gospel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So sorry about the little mix up there. I didn't realize I've been making updates.
You are a human. You're a human, brother. Still a human.
So now, interestingly, so this story, now, Tabari, for instance, ignores this entire narrative. Tabari doesn't mention it anywhere. So Ibn Kathir mentions it. Tabari doesn't say a word about it. But he does mention Paul in relation to his arrival and crucifixion in Rome, together with Peter by the order of Emperor Nero. Okay? Now, Tabari omits all of the work of the scholar Saif, which we mentioned in the previous episode, and this explains possibly why he remains neutral to positive towards Paul in other historical works, right? Al-Masudi, however, now speaks about this, and he puts the crucifixion of Peter and Paul in the days of the Emperor Claudius, right?
Oh,
And yes, now we've got two separate emperors. These scholars can't decide which time they lived, right?
man, that's
Right?
how messed up this Quran is, man. Literally,
Right.
it doesn't give you the name, it doesn't give you the location, it doesn't give you jack. We send them two, and then we strengthen with the third. Like, what the hell, Allah? What are you trying to say to me?
Right. It's very vague on the details. Now, of course, Masudi identifies them with the two messengers sent to Antioch mentioned in Surah 17. So he identifies Peter and Paul from Surah 17. Okay. Now, according to him, according to Masudi, the bodies of Peter and Paul were put into crystal glass cases in which they were preserved in various churches in Rome until this day.
Where, when did this happen?
He died in 956, and according to his history, according to al-Masudi's history, this was relevant at the time that he lived.
But like, how did he find this information? Like, what is his source? Like, did Jibrail came to him directly and told him that?
We don't know, but these are the different stories that these scholars are telling. These guys are making up stories. Now let's look at Tabari. Let's go back to Tabari, volume 4, page 123, 127, on his story of Jesus. Now notice he says in the story of Jesus that Jesus was both human and angelic, celestial and terrestrial. Tabari claims that Jesus had two natures.
Nice. Nice. Okay, you need to give me this location in which surah so that I could go there.
It's in Tabari,
Wow.
volume 4, page 123. So Tabari,
Oh, this is the history of Tabari. Okay, now I got it.
yeah,
Volume 4. This is
right.
like 12-volume book, man. It's crazy long book.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So, but notice he says here that Jesus has two natures. Okay, and then he also, Tabari tells us that Peter was beheaded, but Paul was crucified head down. As we all know, Peter was crucified, Paul was beheaded. And the story is that Peter was beheaded head down. And of course, as I said, I mixed up the notes again, which is my bad. But the idea that Peter was that Peter was crucified head down, okay, upside down, that came from the apocryphal Gospel of Peter, not from the canonical Gospels. Of course, it is repeated by other early church fathers. However, the story comes from an apocryphal Gospel that was upside down, because the Bible doesn't explicitly state
that. Yeah, but like at the same time, I've read somewhere else as well, like you are stating that he actually asked for it. That's what I read. I do not know
True.
the
It's not in the
authorship.
Bible. The Bible
Not in the
doesn't
Bible. Not in the
explicitly
Bible.
say.
Yeah, not in the
Yeah.
Bible. Not in the Bible. Just let everyone know, not in the Bible. But he asked for it. He said that my Lord was crucified, so you wanna crucify me, but crucify me upside down. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be
That is recorded in the apocryphal Acts of Peter. That's the first record that we have. Now, notice they say here that among the apostles and the followers who came after them were the apostle Peter and Paul, who was a follower, not an apostle. The apostles are the original followers of Jesus, and the followers are the ones who then followed the apostles, right? So he names Paul not in a negative light at all, right? And it says here that they were sent to the country whose people are man-eaters, a land of blacks, we think.
Everyone is black, man. According to Islam, everyone other than Arabs are black.
Right. Whatever, the land of man-eaters. Now, again, the history, we need to ask ourselves about this, right? And then, of course, he says here, Tabari says that Nero ruled for 14 years. He slew Peter and crucified Paul. We know that it was he slew Paul and crucified Peter. The other way around. Exactly. So, interestingly, these scholars get these basic facts wrong. So let's go back to Masudi, right? Masudi, but most of those who occupy themselves with the history of the world think they were killed during the reign of the fifth emperor, Nero. That's Masudi now. Okay? So he's saying that it was killed during the reign of Emperor Nero. Now the question is, did they read the Bible? Did they know history? Masudi also identifies Paul with the third messenger sent by Allah to Antioch, right? That's in Quran 36:14 and Ibn Kathir, as we've discussed. Then Ibn al-Jawzi, who died in 1200, he identifies Paul as one of the two messengers described in Surah 36. So this story is not something we're making up. These are some of the major scholars of Islam stating that Paul was a messenger of Allah, a follower of Allah doing Allah's bidding. Your thoughts on that?
Like, seriously, don't ask me any thoughts now.
Right. Now, the crucifixion of Peter and Paul in
By the
Rome
way,
are both...
before I get there, Ibn Kathir, when he was writing his book, Qisasul Anbiya and all, and the Siras, he actually read in his first page, he said, when I'm writing this, going to use nothing from the Bible, because our God and the messenger has given us everything. So I do not need to use the Bible. Now, when you read his tafsir, like at least 50% of the narrative to make the story in some kind of a right way, he uses the Bible.
Right.
That is how stupid it is, man. They lie from the beginning.
No doubt, the Quran is too lax detail. Now, in Ibn al-Jawzi, the crucifixion of Peter and Paul in Rome is also mentioned with no negative views, okay? Including another scholar called Ibn al-Athir, who wrote about this. Again, so these are positive statements. Now, let's have a look at it again. Let's go back to some of the newer scholars again, and back to this guy, Ibn Ḥazm, this guy who finally just made this story into legend, right? So the anti-Paul narrative crystallizes under Ibn Ḥazm. So in his book, Kitāb al-fiṣal, one of the things we have heard related by the Jews, scholars, without anyone denying it, boils down to the following, right? According to Ibn Ḥazm, their rabbis on whose authority they have adopted their religion, the Torah as well as the books of the prophets, agreed to bribe Paul the Benjaminite. They ordered him to profess outwardly the religion of Jesus and to deceive the Christians and to induce them to follow the doctrine of Jesus' divinity, which is supposedly a false doctrine. They told him, we shall take upon ourselves your sin, and he was extremely successful, as is generally known. Now, we started here in the beginning, so let's continue. Now, Ibn Ḥazm condemns Paul. Yeah?
So basically, the first person in reality, as in historical data, the real critique of Paul was started from Ibn Ḥazm. Yes, there are certain other people in the past which actually said something left, right, and center, but they were literally confused. They were confusing Paul with the Paul king, the 3rd century, 4th century king Paul, and then Saul with the King Saul of the pre-Jesus. But like the real critique is done by this idiot, right?
Yeah, he's the one who made this famous. He's the one who took it, and eventually in Spain, he's the one who made this famous, who finally said, look, this is now the official version of the story. So we've seen different versions of the story and how the scholars absolutely disagree. Some have nothing bad to say. They say positive things. Some claim he was a follower of Allah, and others just make up stories. And the history is all over the place. They can't get basic facts right. They aren't even sure what century Paul was in. Some put him in the 4th, the 5th, the 3rd century. It's just crazy.
Unbelievable. And we have our dear brother Love for Muslims with a super chat. Hi everyone, East or West? Brother Adam, Prince is the best. Okay, now I'm a prince instead of... Thank you, brother, for your super chat. God bless you.
Adam Prince. Well, cool, man, yeah.
From Christian Prince, I think that's what our brother Love for Muslim is saying. God bless you, brother, and thank you for your super chat.
Right, so now Ibn Ḥazm says, it is a thing which we do not consider unlikely for the Jews to do. Okay? It is a thing we do not consider unlikely to have been committed by them because they, the Jews, intended to do the same with us and with our religion, even though it was impossible for them to reach their goal in this case. Remember, we spoke of a Jew, supposed Jew, who faked becoming a Muslim to try to destroy the Islamic faith, and this Jew created the schism between Shia and Sunni, right? And they want to now make Paul the same, that Paul created the schism between Islam and Christianity. Right? This happened when Abdullah ibn Saba, known as Ibn al-Sauda, the Jew, the Himyarite, may God curse him, converted to Islam with the purpose of deceiving as many Muslims as he could. So Paul deceived people away from following Islam because the Bible clearly points to Islam. right? And in fact, the evil Jew of this narrative induced a contemptible group of partisans of Ali, the Shia, to profess his divinity, just like Paul had suggested the idea of the divinity of Christ to the Christians. This is Ibn Hazm. These partisans, yeah, go on.
I'm loving this guy now.
These partisans of Ali are the Batiniya and the Khaliya to this day. The least unbelieving of them are the Imamiyya. May Allah curse them all.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. So the people who doesn't know this BS what he wrote is, let me just give you some ideology of this. Including some group, I can't even pronounce that word, of partisanism of Ali to profess his divinity. So this is because that in Shia Islam, they do not say that Muhammad is the only person which comes out of the light of Allah. They say Ali and Fatima and Hassan and Hussein, the Panchtane Pak, which simply means the holy five, they all come from the light of Allah. They are the Nur Allah. They come from the Nur of Allah. And they were there before the beginning of the earth was ever created. Just like Muhammad, everything that you have read about Muhammad, they add the rest of these four as well. The Ali, the Fatima, the Hassan and Hussein, and they call Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein as five, the holy five. So now Ibn Hazm actually is taking that narrative that they are giving him, the Ali, Fatima and Muhammad and Hussein, as the divine verdict, just like Muhammad. That's what he is actually claiming. And secondly, just like you can say salam to Muhammad, assalamu alayka hayyuhan nabiyyu, right? Same is the way the Shias actually send salam to Ali and Hassan and Hussein and the Fatima, because they think just like Muhammad that he can listen and he can hear because he's the prophet in the arwah, not in his grave. Just like that, Ali, Hassan and Hussein are listening. They are there and they can receive your salam. They can receive your blessing and salam. So
Wow.
that's the narrative of Shia Islam, and
It's
that's
like praying
the
to them.
mainstream.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the mainstream narrative. Like there are certain less mainstream as well people who would deny this, and they do deny this, but it is written, and that's the mainstream, like 80% Shiaism. So
Wow.
that's what Ibn Hazm is actually referring to. FYI, guys.
Okay, cool. Yep, so Ibn Hazm says, according to the Christians, Paul had prohibited circumcision, one of the firmest legal prescriptions of the Torah. And he discusses the epistles of Paul, for which he apparently had Arabic translations. Now that's interesting. If he had them, where are they? Now, I must make a note that, well, actually, no, there's a lot that I should discuss it separately, but the story of a book being brought to a man by an angel, that actually comes from a heretical sect from the 2nd century called the Book of al-fiṣal, right? So that's something I'll discuss in another time. But also, this is a heretical book, so it's written by a Gnostic Christian sect, and they do discuss in depth and again related to Paul, where circumcision is something that is binding upon everyone, and a number of other things which are part and parcel of the accusations in the first episode discussed against Paul, right? So that Paul broke these things. Now, they are getting these things on circumcision not from the true Bible, but from heretical Gnostic books, clearly, because these claims are not in the Bible, because circumcision was something that was given to if I recall, the tribe of Abraham. I need to be sure. I have notes, and also the food laws, which again they talk about, which is in the Book of al-fiṣal, that we're supposed to follow these rules. That's a misunderstanding of the Jewish law, because the dietary laws were given to the tribe of Israel, right? Not to Christians. Now, Paul, as a side aside, Paul being a very, very highly trained Jewish scholar, he knew the law, and he knew that these laws were binding upon Jews, but we were no longer trying to be Jews, we were trying to be Christians, right? And therefore, Paul would have followed the laws of Noah, which of course many conspiracy theorists want to call the Jews' plan to take over the world and kill everybody. But these are the laws of Noah, the covenant of Noah, which are basic regulations, which are the precursor to the 10 Commandments. 6 of them are in the 10 Commandments, right? And so therefore you will see that Paul based the Christian law as he saw it upon that, because Christianity does come out of a Jewish background. Right?
Okay, just to add to this point, if circumcision is so important according to Ibn Hazm, why does Quran does not mention it?
That's a good question. Why is that
Like,
missing? Yes.
if it is such an important thing,
So where does it come from?
the Torah,
Well, but is it in the Hadith?
obviously, but I'm talking about
So
like
doesn't
nowhere
that
in
tell
the
us
Quran.
that the Hadiths can abrogate and supersede the Quran?
Oh yes, there are a lot of hadiths which has literally zero reference in Quran, and they are binding and incumbent on Muslimin. At the same time, if we look at it, the major problem, Quran actually talks about the Sabbath, right? There are 3 locations where Quran talks about the Sabbath, and Quran says that the people who broke the Sabbath, we made them like apes. So Allah
Yes.
made them apes because they broke the Sabbath. So if Sabbath is so important, why Muslims do not follow Sabbath, rather they go and pray on Friday, and they don't celebrate Sabbath,
Good question. Yeah,
right?
these are questions. So there are lots of. So as I'm starting to put it this way, as I'm starting to do the research on just what is this Injil, what is this Taḥrīf, where does this Taḥrīf come from? I started with St. Paul as the major focus of this accusation of Taḥrīf, and I will be expanding that. What I'm finding really is not necessarily always the answers, but the thing is we're starting to ask better questions. We're starting to see things differently now. We're starting to see why they had to make these accusations. And there's a lot of problems. There are a number of problems starting to show up.
Exactly.
But
And then when did Muhammad got circumcised? In any of
that's
the
been what,
seerah,
40
have
plus?
you have read
Right?
so many seerahs, right? In any of the seerah,
Oh no,
did
he was
you
born
read
circumcised. Muhammad is born circumcised.
that's a narrative which is backed up by
Yeah.
nothing, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's
But
that's
absolute
called
no,
a
because Jesus, they claim, for they'll always tell you Jesus was circumcised on the 8th day, according to the Jewish law, but Muhammad was born circumcised. He was better than Jesus.
exactly. But like that's once again, let me repeat what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
That narrative that you read in a few of the
Mm-hmm.
seerahs, it's not backed up with any chain of narrators, right? So it is called a madud hadith, a madud,
Right.
right?
Yeah, it's
So
fabricated, correct?
it's a fabricated one, not a daif, but a fabricated one,
But they take it
and
as fact.
they they have to. But like the thing is, we all know that Muhammad's mother was worshipping idols. She is in hell according to the Sahih hadiths of Sahih Bukhari,
Mm-hmm.
Sahih Muslim, Sunan Ibn Dawood. Muhammad's father is in hell. Muhammad's mother is in hell. Muhammad's uncle is in hell, right? Then
Right.
when did Muhammad got circumcised? At the age of 40? Who saw the private part of Muhammad to validate that he was circumcised? Because we have other hadiths which says that when it comes to give the last uh, bath, so in Islam you have to give a bath to the dead guy, dead body. You have to give him a bath, a proper bath. It is called the ghusl of the ghusl of the dead body. Okay, in that ghusl you have to clean the whole person up, right? Now uh, for Muhammad, certain writer says that he was not made naked to do the bath.
No, because in some of the seerah, they say that Muhammad says that if someone sees me naked, they will go blind. Whoever
Yeah,
sees me
because
naked will go blind. And he talks about people who have, which makes you
gone
wonder,
blind.
like his wives? Like, what about that?
Uh, let's not go there. Let's keep it G-rated. So so basically he had clothes on when they gave him a final bath. So nobody
Right.
sees supposedly his thing, whether it was circumcised or not.
Yeah,
And
but
when his
also he
mother
says
was
Ali was the only one allowed to circumcise him in the seerah. Ali was the one who was allowed to, because if anyone else looked at him, he would go blind. That's in the Sunni seerah.
exactly, once again, very falsified statements, but still, all of his wives, I don't know what he was doing with his wives, man. But anyhow,
Yeah, I mean,
let's forget that.
Aisha says in the seerah that she never saw Muhammad naked.
What?
Yeah, she says in the
There are
seerah
so
she
many
never saw.
hadiths where Muhammad is having ding dong, bing bong with all of his wives.
She
Like,
says in the seerah she never saw Muhammad naked.
so Muhammad was doing the ding dong with the cloth on.
I didn't write these things, dude. I'm just telling you what they say.
Oh, that is why there is always semen marks on his trousers.
Yeah. I mean, she says she never saw him naked. I can try and find it. I mean,
But forget that part. Let's go to Ibn Hazm. Leave that. It will go dirty. I don't want to destroy the live stream.
yeah, okay, let's skip that. Okay. So right, moving on. So there's a lot of weird things. The Sirah, man, when you read the Sirah, it's a laugh. It's a riot what you find there. So Ibn Hazm, he ridicules Paul's views on circumcision. The cursed Paul says in one of his epistles, the one to the Galatians in the 6th chapter, we testify to every man who has been circumcised that he is obliged to keep the laws of the Torah completely. So now he's paraphrasing Galatians, right? But this is not what Paul says, right? He says, look, if you're going to keep the law, then you have to keep all the law, and that's not possible, right? However, somewhat earlier, he writes, if you are circumcised, Christ will profit you nothing. How strange that he apparently prescribed 2 different religions to them. So now he's making a claim.
So he used partially one verse and he used another partially verse and tried to say, oh, why is it so different? It's like so like Satan, man.
He's the grandfather of Ahmed Didat.
Oh yes, for sure.
He's definitely the grandfather of Ahmed Didat. So, and the person who is circumcised is obliged to keep the laws of the Torah, but Christ will profit him nothing, Ibn Hazm writes. However, Christ will indeed profit the uncircumcised, although he is not obliged to keep the religious laws of the Torah. These are the words of Ibn Hazm.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, whatever, I'll say whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, this would mean a discussion into just what exactly is in the Bible at that point. Right. So understand he's obviously reading the Bible and he's now ridiculing the Bible. Right. So Paul and the other disciples were circumcised according to the unanimous Christian view. It follows that Christ did not profit them.
What?
So according to, yes, that's what he's claiming.
Is he an idiot?
while they were bound to keep all the laws of the Jews. Right?
No. They were circumcised because they were Jews. I can agree on
Correct.
that. Okay. That's not the point. They were circumcised on the 8th day as a Jewish child was done at that time. Now, the second line I have a problem with.
Yeah, because remember, he's claiming that he's misphrasing 2 different statements, right? Because Paul is talking to the Jews and to the Gentiles. He's talking to the Messianic Jews and he's talking to the Gentiles. And there's different contexts within each, and he's misreading them. And now he's trying to. Ibn Hazm was a very, very, shall we say, critical scholar of Islam, of Christianity. He was extremely acidic towards Christianity.
Exactly. He actually created a whole polemical idea. The whole polemical idea was created by this guy. If you look at the history, this whole polemics started from this guy.
He wasn't the original starter, but he's the guy that collected it all together, made this argument, and then it was carried on by 2 further men. Okay, there was Ibn al-Jabbar who came before him. Then you had Ibn Hazm, and then you had Ibn Hazm in the 11th century, right? Then you had Hazm, and then you had Ibn Taymiyyah and the student of Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim. We mentioned Ibn Qayyim. We showed his book about Christians urinating on the benches in their pants in the church. That's what we showed last week.
Once again, they are all later. This is the guy, I think, because I think this is the guy who actually, the statement that I'm going to speak, let me know if it is Ibn Taymiyyah's or his. He said, we do not have to defend the Quran. We have to make them defend their Bible.
Defend the Bible. That's Ibn Jabbar. That was Ibn al-Jabbar. He was the guy that created that whole standard of attack the Bible, don't defend the Quran, make them push the polemic. Yeah.
So Ibn Jabbar is like 40, 50 years before Ibn Hazm, right?
Yeah, he died in 1025. Ibn Hazm died in 1064. So there's about 40 years between them.
So almost, they were like friends of each other in a way.
They probably would have known. Yeah, they were contemporaries at some point. They would have overlapped.
So yeah, that's when the whole idea started to attack the Bible rather than tell them about.
Because obviously some of the polemic of Saif Umar al-Tamimi was obviously really stupid, and some of the history was obviously really a joke. So Ibn Hazm seems that he had to drop some of that and then start a fresh argument, building on some of that, but starting a fresh argument. Because now I'll do a quick aside here. The New Testament, the very first copy of the New Testament, was only the full Arabic copy of the New Testament was only written in 867 AD. That's the we've mentioned that before. Okay, 867, 235 years after the supposed death of the supposed Muhammad. All right, and that was in Egypt, in the Sinai. Now, prior to that, the Gospel and even some of the Torah was being spoken about orally, right? Arabia was home to a lot of Gnostics, a lot of heretics, a lot of sects that had fled Rome. They were kicked out because they were just heretical and were violating the standards of the church. Now, there were only fragments, small documents that had pieces of the Gospels, pieces of the Old Testament, right? So it's only in the 9th century that we have a record of when the Quran is now established and Christians are reading and learning about the Quran and seeing what nonsense is written in the Quran, that they respond and they start to write and translate and copy the New Testament Gospels and start to spread it. So it's only in the 9th century, after the Arabic Gospel had been completed, that now it started to spread into the Arabic world. So prior to that, Muslims had no access to any written Arabic copies of the full Gospel. They may have had access to small pages here and there, maybe a chapter. So the question is, if the Injil, in the 700s, there was no Arabic copy of the Injil, of the Torah, of the Gospel, what exactly was Muhammad pointing to? What in Arabic was he looking at and having people read? What exactly was this book, this Injil? Because it could not have existed at the time that Muhammad says it did.
Exactly, brother, and that's why we have another book that people have to read. Is called the Syriac origin of Quran, and you would see that there are so many words which comes from Syria, and that is why Quran never says that this is an Arabic Quran. It actually uses the word, this Quran is sent in the tongue of Arabia. We have sent this Quran in the tongue of Arabia. So Arabian back then might be speaking something in the middle of derived kind of a form of Syriac language. And that's why Quran actually alludes to the fact that we have sent this Quran in the tongue of Arabian Peninsula. So once again, this is what we are talking about is not the standard narrative. This we can just conclude through logic and the words written in Quran that this could be there in a way, because according to historical evidences, the earliest Bible fragments that we have is called Syriac Codex 151, and if I'm not mistaken, they are in 850 something.
867. That's the one I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, we know that there's a Syriac codex of the Fatiha, as in the opening prayer of the Quran. There's actually a Syriac codex going back, which has most of the Fatiha. The Muslims just added about the Jews and the Christians, about hating the Jews and the Christians, but that actually exists in a Syriac codex. So I'm busy researching into this right now. I'm actually busy putting together some research on that, because there could have been no gospel. There was just nothing available for him. Maybe fragments, but what is this Injil? What exactly is it? These are questions. So yeah, shall we finish up, move on?
Yes, brother, please.
Right, yeah. But these are very good questions that need to be asked. So I'm trying to figure all this out. So since most Christians now living among the Muslims are circumcised, it follows that if they were speaking the truth, Christ did not profit them either. While they are obliged to keep all the laws of the Torah, but if Paul lied concerning this matter, how could they then accept the teaching of their religion from a liar? Yet one of these possibilities must be true. So he then misreads the New Testament, and he starts to then slander Paul and slander the Christians. He hated Christians. So Paul and the other disciples were circumcised according to the unanimous Christian view. Okay? So, sorry, what have I done here? Oh, sorry, I went backwards. My bad, I hit the wrong button. Now, Imam Qurtubi. Let's have a look at Imam Qurtubi. Now, this guy, he says it like he sees it, man, which is interesting to read his stuff.
I love this guy, by the way.
Yeah, he just says what he thinks, and you're like, okay, that's the DC makes it plain. So he includes Saif, the original, in Volume 1. In episode 1, we spoke of Saif. that's where Paul is the king of the Jews and all that nonsense. He includes Saif's complete story in the second introduction to the third chapter of his anti-Christian polemic, which is devoted to the establishment of Muhammad's prophethood. The same as Ibn Jabbar, the same as all the rest, right? They want to bring Jesus down, lift Muhammad up. He states that the story is found in historical books preserved by us and them. That's the statement he makes. The question is, where are these books? What's the name of this book? Do they have these books? Okay. Now, so that's where Paul becomes the king of the Jews. Paul leaves his kingdom. Paul goes to become a fake Christian. The Jewish rabbis bribe Paul. That's the story he's talking about. Now, Paul's third vision, leading to the abolition of the Christian jihad by his followers, is left out. He doesn't have that detail from Saif's story. Now, unfortunately for them, during the Reconquista, with the continuous battles between the Muslims and Christian Spain, this story of this vision had lost its credibility. When they said that the Christians had given up the jihad, they were trying to tell the Muslims, the Christians are weak. The Christians have given up war fighting and jihad. We still do jihad because we follow Allah, but the Christians are weak. They are not doing it because they're weak. And so thus it was a polemic against the Christians and, to pump up the Muslims. But this vision lost its credibility because the Spanish eventually started to fight back. And maybe this is why Muslims so often claim that we're supposed to be peaceful and turn the other cheek, because this is part of the story that they believe about Christianity, part of the polemic that says we gave up jihad and we said that we will only turn the other cheek. Your comment before I move on?
No, brother, you're absolutely right. It is said multiple times that Allah has made Jews and Christians weak for you to overcome in different narrations. So, yeah.
Now, Qurtubi also speaks of the believers that flee to Arabia, where 30 of their monks eventually meet Muhammad and die as Muslims. We spoke about that story in the previous episode. Qurtubi says this took place, but Allah knows best. Remember, Allah knows best is something that Muslims have to say when they don't know. It's part of their creed. If you look at the Tahawiyya Aqidah, the Tahawiyya Creed, right, you'll find it's number 75, and it says, when we don't know, when we have no knowledge, we have to say Allah knows best.
No, but before that, we have to tell Allah from our mind without thinking if it is true or not. And then in the end, we say Allah knows best.
Yeah, so actually, let me just show that to people, because we have done that before.
And thank you, Adijibo Lon. Sorry, I can't even pronounce your name right. Thank you for your super sticker, brother. God bless you.
Yeah, this is so just like we have the Nicene Creed and stuff in Christianity, like we believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth and all that. Muslims have a creed as well. So this one is the Aqidah al-Tahawiyya. Let's have a look. So Allah is one without partners. There's nothing like him. There's no God other than him, and so on. And they tell you these are the basic things Muslims must believe. Okay, he appointed destinies for those he created. He allotted them fixed lifespans and all that nonsense. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And we go here to number 75. And Allah says, when our knowledge about something is unclear, we say Allah knows best. In other words, when we have no clue, when we're clueless, we need to say these words.
The only thing Allah knows is the breast, and that's in Quran. He talks about the breast in very pictorial way.
Yeah, he likes that. Okay, so Allah knows best about 40 years after Christ. So this took place, okay? So they say that 30 of their monks eventually meet Muhammad and die as Muslims. This took place about 40 years after Christ. Consequently, the whereabouts of the believer and his followers continued to be concealed, whereas the followers of the other sect remained divided but intermingled. Now he's talking about the Nestorians, the Jacobites, the Melkites, right? Nestor and Jacob would be real people. The Melkites are simply just mean the royalists, people who followed the royal court. So there was no actual Malcolm. There was no actual person. It was just a title. Understand? So they're putting people who lived 300, 400, 500 years after Muhammad, after Jesus, after Paul, right? They're putting these people in the first century, and Paul spoke to them, and they're claiming a person for a title of a sect that never had a person, right? And their situation was not consolidated until the time of Emperor Constantine. Now, again, this is very interesting. This is all leading to these historical blunders that these guys are making constantly. Okay, but I mean, he does mention Constantine, so fine and well. Now, Qurtubi pays special attention to the practical and the ritual side of Christianity. He explains why the religion of the Christians is often contradictory to the teachings of Jesus. He goes out of his way to explain why the religion of Jesus and what the Christians practice are not the same.
But like,
He
how did
reminds
he
his
find
readers
out that it is? How did he found out that it is contradictory to Jesus' teaching when he
because
doesn't even have the Bible of Jesus?
these are questions that we need to start asking. I need to see. We need to map this out in a timeline and start looking at this, and that's something I want to do, because it's like we need to look at the history of the Bible in Arabic, and the history of the Bible in Arabic is not. It's not what you'd think, that it was just the Bible. No, it took a long time. It was in fragments and orally and yeah. So
Because
Qurtubi,
because Arabic was not even a predominant language of that time. That's the thing. It was a language which was evolving. It had no roots at that time. So that is why
fair enough.
nobody translated anything into Arabic back in those days.
That's true. So yeah, there's lots of historical questions that we can now start to. I'm trying to create the basis, right? I'm trying to say, look, there are problems here, right? And there are questions to be asked. And if we start asking these questions and we start doing the research, if any of you take this information, start asking the questions and start doing the research, you're going to find things that I've missed. You're going to find details. I'm one person, right? I'm doing many different things, but there are things to be learned here. There are questions to be asked, and Islam can be taken apart historically. We're finding another one of the holes in the standard Islamic narrative. The standard Islamic narrative is a lie, and we need to question it constantly. Right? Scholars have not done their job by following these clues. Now, he does claim that Paul changed the Qibla, right, and abolished their dietary laws. Now, of course, Christians do not follow the Jewish law, right? That was for the Jews. So clearly, this is something that is normal. But again, it's based on this book which I mentioned earlier, the book of al-fiṣal. That would be where this is made clear. The abolition of circumcision is blamed on Constantine. Now, Qurtubi blames the abolition of circumcision on Constantine, not on Paul. Very, very interesting.
And why would Constantine do such a thing?
Your guess is as good as mine, but he doesn't blame Paul, which is very, very interesting. Right?
Interesting, double interesting now.
So he doesn't blame Paul, right? So Ibn Jabbar blames Paul, but Qurtubi makes up a whole different story again. I mean, again, these scholars just can't come to a single conclusion. They're just making up different stories. They're all over the place. Now let's look at al-Qarafi. So now he says Paul's an imposter and a cheat who spread Trinitarian beliefs and sowed discord amongst the Christians. Okay, so fine and well. And he says that these narratives are mentioned in a section on circumcision, right, where he claims that all Christians used to be circumcised until the time of Paul, who forbade this practice, and Paul was like the devil to them. Right, so according to him, Paul was like the devil to the Christians, right? And he says this cursed Paul was the first to corrupt the religion of the Christians after they had professed the unity of Allah.
Where?
So Christians apparently, I don't know.
Okay.
But this is what he's saying. This is what's in his notes, in his books, right?
So he's just saying things without giving you any evidence.
They're all doing this. That's the problem. They're all doing this. They're making claims. So these are the top scholars of Islam. I mean, these are not nobodies, right? So he says here that Paul was the first to corrupt the religion of the Christians after they'd professed the unity of Allah. So apparently we had followed the Tawhid, right? He changed the foundations of their laws and he altered the system of their rules concerning circumcision. Now notice, Qarafi blames Paul, not Constantine. We just had Qurtubi blaming Constantine, not Paul, right? And he says here he was the originator of the confession of Trinity, which arose from Paul's evil views.
Oh.
Right. So now this is another polemic written against Paul and the Christians, but now he contradicts Qurtubi about talking about circumcision.
Let me answer you on that. 2 weeks ago, I had a debate with a Muslim who said, you have to prove me Trinity without using the writing of Paul. I was like, but you are asking me to prove you something by using, maybe leaving 40% of my text. He said, yes, because Paul gave you Trinity. I was like, okay, if this is your stance that Paul gave me Trinity, then I can do that. Then let's go. And we had a 2 hours, 30 minutes long discussion. and it is in my Urdu channel because it was a guy from the India, Muslim from India. It is in Hindi/Urdu, and let me tell you, I had people in my live chat who were saying that this Muslim fellow is absolutely silly in what he is bringing. So yeah, even the atheist and the agnostics and other religious people who were there, they saw how lame the arguments are against Trinity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bart Ehrman said that the Trinity was a known concept before Paul already, right?
Absolutely, because we already know that
Yeah.
it's in the
Now, the
Gospels.
question is, now they claim that Paul corrupted Christianity, then they claim that Paul invented Christianity. What is the right story here? Notice these scholars don't have a story. They all have a different story. Now, if he invented Christianity, then why was he killing Christians? Right? So,
Exactly.
right? If he corrupted Christianity, then it was there before he invented it.
hmm
I mean,
hmm
they don't seem to follow their own logic.
That's how silly they are. Eva is saying, I wish Adam can translate these debates into English. Sister, quite frankly, if a debate is happening in 2 hours 30 minutes, imagine if I'm running it and then translating it, his view and my view, it will take me 6.5 hours of a live stream. So that will be very, very difficult.
You know? Yeah, of course, and there's the Gospel of John. That is true. The Synoptic Gospels in John. That's another story. So, look, guys, I'm trying to sort of point out. This is new material to me as well. So, I'm trying to show you what were the scholars saying about Paul that was negative, right? What are the negative statements? I need to do another presentation on the neutral and positive statements that scholars make about Paul. Now, I've touched on it briefly, but these are all the scholars where I found. Now, you can dig deeper. I mean, these guys wrote books. I'm showing you one page or a couple of paragraphs or a sentence or two, right? Understand there's whole books to be read here, right? So you can spend the next month reading books on this from these guys and seeing just what nonsense they've written, right? So you can dig into detail into any of these scholars and go like, I mean, none of these people are nobodies. These are top scholars of Islam, right? Of their era. Right now, the last couple of slides, and then we can open up and do some other things, right? So now Al-Qaisi, 14th century. So now we're moving. So now he claims that Paul caused the Crusades. Paul is the cause of the Crusades. So, okay, fine. Now, he presents Saif Umar ibn al-Tamimi's narrative as illustrative of the historical causes of division amongst Christians. Okay, so Paul caused the divisions among Christians, right, in the first century when that was not the case, but he explicitly states the story was derived from the 5th volume of the Diwan of Saif ibn Umar al-Tamimi on the authority of Ibn Abbas, right? So this is a chain of narration. That's the isnad. As in al-Khurtubi, Paul's third vision of jihad is omitted. So he now misses this part of the story. So he transmits some portions of it. He leaves out the jihad story, right? But then that vision had been proven false. He deals with inconsistencies and supposed improbabilities of the Gospels. And Casey says that among the Christians, there were a group of friars, right? These are monks called the Temple, who were a remnant of the believers' followers. So they were holy men, okay, called the Temple, who were a remnant of the believers' followers. Now remember, the believers, so just to recap for those who missed last week, Paul found 4 followers amongst the many stories of Paul. Okay, in this particular story, Paul had 4 followers, right? So he had Nestor, Jacob, and Malcolm. Okay, Malcolm could never have been a real man, but whatever. And he had a man called the Believer, right? And he gave this guy a story, okay, about Jesus, and he gave this guy a story about Jesus, and he gave this guy another story. So he had 3 different stories. And then this man called the Believer listened to Paul and went like, no way, this is not true. This is not what Jesus brought. This is not what Jesus says. I don't believe you. I'm going to hold fast to the true story of Jesus. And then each of these men leave and they form followers and they start teaching them what Paul taught them. And of course, there's now 3 different stories that are conflicting. And the believer, he's got the smallest group, you know. And Paul says that the believer won't believe him, so the other 3 groups must fight the believer and attack them, right? So they attack them, but these guys run away, and they run away to Palestine. They come to Palestine, and the Jews capture them. And they tell the Jews, please leave us alone. We just like to be by ourselves, living in the wilderness, and we're not going to bother anybody. And of course, some of these believers, they become heretics and they believe in the Trinity and they go off and they do things. But 30 of them become monks who are holy and remember the true teachings of Jesus, and they meet Muhammad and they die happily as Muslims. That's the story, right?
Oh, so these believers Paul was talking to lived for 600 years?
No, their descendants. Their descendants
Oh,
live and
descendants.
eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, in this case,
Thankfully. Oh,
in this case.
oh,
So,
glad you cleared that part.
yeah. Glad I clarified that. But there are stories in Quran where the people have too long lifespans, and that's another story. But yeah, moving on. Now they were supported by, right? These friars of the temple were supported by, and they served the temple, and they preserved clerical rule, and they took a remnant of the donations, according to Al-Qaisi's little story of these believers of the temple. And they were very wealthy. They considered themselves, now the temple was very wealthy. They considered themselves monotheistic, Muslim, remember, monotheism, Islam, and they doubted Muhammad's message. I made a typo there. Okay, they doubted Muhammad's message. Okay, so fine and well. And they taught that the true religion was the unity of Allah. Thank you, Christian Family Man, for making that available. Guys, my channel in the chat, please, if you'd like to, just subscribe. He's making a link available. So, now they taught the true religion was the unity of Allah, that Jesus was the messenger and servant of Allah, and that the beliefs of the Christians were heresy. So these monks who served the temple taught that these monks, now Islam doesn't, I don't know if they have monks, but anyway, so in 709, the priests and clerics became suspicious, that's after Hijrah, and they began to investigate and spy on these friars, right? And they discovered that their leader and representative had converted to Islam, which is very interesting. Al-Qaisi, writing in the 14th century, claims that a leader of an important, wealthy, supposedly Christian group had now converted fully to Islam.
But we
After
do not
religious-
find this guy in any hadith of Kitāb al-Sittah.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get into the story. Yeah, so after a religious dispute, this leader handed over a letter in which he defended the friars and explained their pure monotheistic belief, Islam, which was in conformity with Islam. This letter went to the Pope in Rome, who opened it secretly. The letter started with the Islamic Bismillah formula and the usual eulogy on the Prophet. Okay? And the letter from this very important man accused the Christians of following the mendacious teachings of Paul the Jew and abandoning the teachings of the Imams and of Jesus. The Pope then informed his inner circle about the contents of the letter, and the Pope hid it in his ark. Okay, the Pope has an ark.
Yeah. Okay, forget it. I won't ask questions. Sorry, please.
Don't confuse yourself with the facts, Adam. The Pope then died, but shortly afterwards, the ruler of France discovers the letter in the ark, of course, and was outraged that no one had informed him about it. He summons the priests, and he tells the priests about the letter. By God, the ruler of France says, who was the ruler? Which king? When? This is what Jesus has promised us. The Muslims will inevitably appear from the Arabian Peninsula and from the whole of Spain. They have discovered the truth of our religion and are well informed about our secret, that they were following the false religion of Paul. And the Muslims would make this known to the whole world. Since these letters testify that no one but Allah should be worshipped, expel these friars, because I fear they will let in the Muslims. We'll find out that these friars are monotheists and will then destroy our country. I will send for the ruler of Portugal, the knights, the common men, and the rulers of Castile and Aragon in order to form a coalition against this people and expel the friars, the Jews, and the Muslims, and send them to the land of the Muslims to seize it, to steal the land of the Muslims, and this land will become ours. Now, the land of the Muslims they refer to here as Jerusalem. Okay, just so you know, Israel. Thereupon, he expelled the Jews from his land and confiscated the friars' wealth and possessions. They took a solemn oath to expel the Muslims and to baptize the Mudajars, whatever that meant. Okay. Now, who do you think? Yeah.
Okay, forget it. No, sorry.
What?
I won't ask it. What the hell is happening here, man?
I know. So let's clarify this whole mystery. So an army is recruited from Europe, gathered on the coast of Barcelona, and Don Jaime, their leader, asked for assistance from the ruler of Mallorca. All the Catalonian noblemen joined the troops and set out to fight the Muslims. He is talking about the Templar Knights.
Okay.
He's talking about the Knights Templar. And the author identifies the Templars as the remnant of the believer. Now, I've spoken about this on different episodes in my channel, where there's very credible evidence that the Muslims were eventually co-opted by Islam. And this guy's confirming the story that the Templars had eventually converted to Islam because of the Baphomet. We've spoken about that before. Okay.
No, we have not.
Andrew Martin
Yeah.
says it sounds like a corruption of the story of the expelling of the Jews in Spain. Yeah, it's a conglomeration of a couple of different stories, but it does have a historical precedent. There actually is a historical connection. But he's adding a little fact that is very, very interesting, that he's claiming from his side that the Templars were Islamic, because a lot of circumstantial evidence does point to the fact that the Templars had eventually converted to Islam and were following Muhammad, right? So the dramatic events he refers to can be verified. The expulsion of the Jews from France took place on July 22nd, 1306. The initiative for the persecution and dissolution of the Templars was taken by the French king in 1307. Clement V overcame his initial opposition and agreed to cooperate in an investigation after rumors about the Templars' heretical views began to spread. Clement V dissolved the order during the Council of Vienna in 1312, and rumors spread in Aragon about the Templars, linking them with the Muslims. And there's a lot of credible evidence that they did convert. Maybe not every single one, but certainly the leadership. Okay, there was definitely an element there. And I've discussed this in previous shows, and I have a lot more information I need to still compile. But it looks legit, because people will say the Templars were tortured. The Templars were questioned across a number of countries in Europe at the time. Very few were tortured. Okay, and those that were questioned made the admissions openly, under no form of duress, that yes, there was an Islamic element, okay, involved there. There was a denial of Christ, there was a corruption of their faith, and an acceptance of Muhammad being Baphomet. I've discussed this before in my shows, all right? So after the Templars' arrest, it seems that several of them entered the service of the Sultan of Granada. During their interrogation, there were a few indications of some form of crypto-Islam came to light in the organization of the Templars. Now, this is from, this is from an encyclopedia. Let me see if I have the name of this encyclopedia. Let me see if I can find it.
Brill's Encyclopedia of Islam?
I'm not certain which one. I don't know if it's the Brill Encyclopedia, but it could be that it's an encyclopedia that I had to go and find. I had to go and find an encyclopedia of something. I'll get the details. So during their interrogations, indications came to light of a form of crypto-Islam in the organization of the Templars. Okay, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence around this, but understand that everyone talks about crypto Jews. Well, here we have discussion about crypto Muslims. Okay, Christians who've converted and secretly are Muslims but claim to be Christians. So this is some interesting stuff to be researched here historically. Many witnesses reported a secret ceremony in which Christ was rejected, right? And one of the members of the order, interrogated, denied his belief in Christ by saying he had asked, "In whom should I believe then?" And the answer was, "In the one great God whom the Muslims worship." Now, this is part of the recorded history of what happened with the Templars, right? This phenomenon in the order of the Templars can be explained hypothetically by assuming that there were Muslim captives, slaves in the order, who were freed after having been baptized. Now, if you look at the evidence, the Muslims eventually joined the Templar order, okay? In the movie, which is a very bad historically, really cool movie, I love it, but historically it's terrible, is The Kingdom of Heaven. Remember with, do you remember that movie, Adam? Kingdom of Heaven?
I don't
with
think
Legolas,
so.
it has Legolas in it. He plays the knight that saves Jerusalem, and he fights against...
Yes. And then, now I remember it. And finally they break the wall and go in.
He fights against... Who's that Muslim that he fights against? The general that he fights against?
Salahuddin?
Salahuddin. Now, Salahuddin became a Templar. Salahuddin became a member of the Templar order. Muslims became members of the Templar order. Understand this. This is crazy. Okay? It's like Satanists joining the Templar order. This is completely out of bounds. Okay? So Salahuddin became one. So anyway, and So they were freed after having been baptized. Many Muslim captives served in the order. Perhaps al-Qaisi, the author of this source, was associated with the Order of the Templars during his captivity in Christian Spain. This would explain his interest in the vicissitudes of the Templars and the sympathy towards them. There's a lot of typos in this.
When I was a Muslim, I read that somewhere that Salahuddin was persecuted by Muslims eventually. You know that, right?
No, I didn't know that.
So yeah, I read it somewhere that eventually Muslims went against Salahuddin, which was
I was
very
not aware of
strange.
that.
Which was
You see,
very.
no, this Templar thing, there's a lot of bad information about the Templars, a lot of bad information out about the Templars. When you start to look at the Islamic connection, it starts to go very strange because the Muslims claim, Muslim scholars claim that the Templars learned, so a bit of a diversion. I don't have the notes with me, so I've got this in other shows, but the Sufis, right, who are the highest religious order within Islam, right, the highest scholars, they claim that the Sufis are the original Freemasons. They claim to have founded Freemasonry in England in the 12th century approximately, I think. And then in the 14th century, they smuggled Freemasonry into Scotland via the Knights Templar. They trained the Knights Templar, they co-opted them and made them Muslim, made them Sufis, taught them the secret rituals, and they sent them to Scotland where they founded the 33rd degree Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, right? So they claim to be the original source of Freemasonry. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. So they claim that the Templars were connected to that. And then there's another set of, above the Freemasons, is a higher level Freemason called the Shriners. And these guys are Islamic through and through. They all claim to be non-denominational, but you look into their history, look into their stuff, it's all Islamic. So anywho, but this story about Salahuddin, that's very interesting. There's a lot of, there's stuff to be researched here that no one's done. I find it crazy. So
Yeah, I'll search those books again. I'll see if I can find them,
yes.
and I'll see the origin of them because they were in Urdu, not a very predominant language. But there are a lot of Arabic books which are translated into Urdu and no other language. I actually found Qurtubi translated into Urdu, where you
There's actually a
cannot
lot.
find it.
Okay, that's crazy. Yeah, because Qurtubi is very hard to find in English. It's almost impossible.
It's impossible. You can't find it. But
Yeah.
I have the whole Qurtubi in
There's one
Urdu.
volume. I have one volume translated. I have volume 2, I think, of his work, which is very helpful.
Oh,
But
I
the
have
rest isn't.
I have each and every surah translated into Urdu. And yes, I have seen the Arabic is like 4 pages long and the Urdu is like 1 page long in certain verses. So it means they're hiding certain facts. Yes, but
Right.
still, you still have more than enough in Urdu of the Qurtubi that if I just translate that Urdu into English, you guys would have like so much material to destroy Islam left, right, and center.
Yeah. The crazy thing is that I've told this, we've spoken about this briefly before when I first met you, I think, some time ago. But there's a lot of Islamic material in Urdu that you can't find in Arabic. It's crazy how much is actually in Urdu. There are hadith collections in Urdu that you won't find in Arabic, like the Kanz al-Mal, that you've
Yes.
never heard of. That is very famous, highly authoritative, well respected, quoted constantly, but good luck trying to find it in English. It's in Urdu.
Yeah, and because like a lot of scholars actually wrote these things in Urdu and Persian, a lot of scholars. And
Yeah.
the second beautiful part is that when we talk about this Urdu language, it is so much resembled into Arabic. It's very easy to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So yeah, this stuff. There's a lot of information we don't have in English. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff you can get. There's plenty in English, believe me. But yeah, there's things that they want to hide, and they Arabic is too easy to translate. But people don't realize there's a huge body of material in Urdu, and you need to go and investigate. You need to go and look because there are things they're hiding by not translating. And people know Arabic is popular enough. People assume Islamic things are in Arabic. They don't realize how much is in Urdu that you don't know about. So I'll finish up here with the last couple of slides. We're just about done. So at the same time, one observes a radically different sentiment in the Islamic traditions on the Gospel of Barnabas. I'm barely going to touch this. In the Gospel of Barnabas, which is a forgery, it's acknowledged to be a forgery, like a 15th or 16th, 16th, 17th century forgery, right? A very bad forgery at that. Okay. You can watch Shabir Sheikh Shabir Ali talk about
He's
it
an
because they want.
idiot.
Yeah, but Shabir Ali talks about it and he actually says, look, we wouldn't use this because it's obviously fraudulent. It's obviously not historically reliable. He actually does a show on him, admits we can't use this, right? But in the Gospel of Barnabas, they don't claim that Paul is a double agent working for the Jews or a double agent working for the Christians or whatever. There's no conspiracy theory there. They claim that Paul is in error. Paul is deceived. Paul is just wrong. Okay? But he's not ruthless. He's not cunning. He's not trying to get people killed. He's not trying to get the Romans to kill the Jews. He's not trying to get the Jews to kill the Christians. He's not trying to get the Christians to not kill the Jews or whatever the stories, because there's so many stories, right? But he's not this deceiver working on behalf of or against the Jews, okay, as the Islamic scholars will tell us. So the errors of Paul in the Gospel of Barnabas are very reluctantly admitted to. It's like they don't really like, okay, well, Paul made a mistake, okay. So the general atmosphere is very different in the 15th century, okay. And I think a lot of these narratives that these scholars have told, these major scholars, these are not nobodies. I think a lot of them are forgotten because it's obviously embarrassing to Islam. But I think we need to resurrect them because these stories are still existing today. Portions of them, aspects of them, are still part of the polemic today. But so they have the polemic, but they hide the source. We've now revealed the sources of the polemic in these 2 episodes, and that was it. So. Okay, I think Adam had to go somewhere again.
No, I'm
Okay.
here. Sorry, I was speaking on mute, and I was saying
Okay.
that thank you so very much. You have done a marvelous job. And yes, we heard all of these answers in debates, in talking to these Muslims and everything. But where are they getting this information? It's not a new information. It is an information which is already written, which has been used from the last 1,000 years.
From the
And it
8th
is being used.
century. Yeah, from the 8th century already.
Exactly. And it is still being used. So that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, yeah. So now we've got the scholarly sources, we've got the names of the scholars, and there's more of them. And besides, I've just shown you 1 or 2 quotes from them. They have whole books you can go into, and you can look and see what they've said, and you can verify. You've seen now. Historically, these people are complete fools. They have no idea what they're talking about. They can't get their dates right. They don't name countries. They don't name kings. They don't name details that they should. So we can show that these people and Western scholars often regard these people as geniuses and great scholars, and it turns out they're complete idiots. And we need to expose this.
I like the way, very relaxed, very easy, you say, but they are complete idiots.
Yeah. Come on, they're making schoolboy mistakes, man. This is embarrassing.
Man, I love your attitude about these things. But like, let's see if there was a couple of Muslims who were here who want to talk about this probably. Let's see if somebody actually have something to say. Here we go. Uh, the next 15-20 minutes will allow the Muslims to tell us how these scholars of Islam, which are major scholars of Islam,
Mm-hmm.
got these things so wrong and so contradictory with each other.
Yeah. I mean, like, how do they determine that Paul is the king of the Jews? Paul actually was the king, the ruler of the country. Where did they get that idea?
Brother, I'm thankful for your hard work. I appreciate your knowledge. At the same time, for everyone who's watching and listening, the links are in description. You can download the books and everything, and even this presentation. Everything is there. Read it, understand it, know it, and then have an argument with them. Because once again, Islam is false, and we know it. But for these Muslims, we have to prove it so that they could get out of this cult of Muhammad. So we have to explain it to them clearly without any ambiguity so that they would be able to get out of it. We already know that it is wrong. We already know that it is false. They do not. So we have to help them. And that
Yeah.
is the whole purpose of this effort that we are doing, is to help them realize how wrong they are, is to help them realize the teaching that they are following, how evil it is, and let's see if they could actually learn and understand and get out. So we can only try our best to help them. The rest is up to them and to the Lord. And we pray to the Lord that the Lord will bring them to the light and the truth and the life, which is in our Lord Jesus Christ. So
Mm.
that's
So,
what it is. I think
so
I
does
have
anyone
at
have any
least,
questions?
yeah, let's like anyone has any questions? Like now this question
I
is
can do
generic.
something on this Baphomet equals Muhammad. Nathaniel mentions that
He wants to do it?
um, this Baphomet being Muhammad, Muhammad and Baphomet. I mean,
Okay.
that's, you know, if anyone's curious about that, but
Yeah, I have 4 dislikes, man. It means there are at least 4 Muslims who watched it. So where are they right now? Anyhow,
who knows?
any question from any Christian? Otherwise, we'll be closing in 9 minutes. The time is running short.
No, I mean, these are, let me just bring this up. So this time I didn't get it wrong. Let me just a minute. I can share my screen again quickly and just show
Uh,
something from on this whole Templar thing. Uh, in history, didn't Genghis Khan's army destroy the southern? I don't know about that part of history. I'm so sorry. Um, yeah,
okay, we have a question. Lloyd, in history, did Genghis Khan and his army destroyed Salahuddin's army and drove him to exile?
I don't know actually. I'm absolutely not sure. I wouldn't know about that part of history, as I said. I mean,
And
it may be
Genghis
true. I
Khan
don't know. I'd
went
have to
all
look
the way
into it.
to Kufa. That's what we know. And
Then
he,
it's, I mean, it's certainly possible, but I don't know. It wasn't relevant to my study because look, I've got so many. I'm working on a number of different presentations at the same time, and I can't do everything. You know.
there you go.
Briefly, so okay, so Baphomet. Let's have a quick run through with this, right? Baphomet is Mahomet. Modern scholars agree that the name Baphomet was an old French corruption of the name Muhammad, right? Which is obviously Muhammad, with the interpretation being that some of the Templars, through their long history, right, with their military occupation of the Middle East, had begun incorporating Islamic ideas into their belief system. The idea that they had incorporated Islamic ideas into their beliefs was a very common theme, right? And this was seen and documented by the Inquisitors as heresy, right? In the Chanson de Simon Piu, there's a story, a Saracen idol, okay, an Islamic idol is called a Baphomet, right? Now, this is a 15th, 16th century, this is the Goat of Mendes by Eliphas Levi. There are different representations of this. I've just picked one. There were many through the ages. Some were just the head, some of the whole body, right? Now, a chronicler of the First Crusade, Raymond of Aguirre, called mosques Bafomarias. Okay, so all of these are connected, as you can see. And in a 1987 book, The Knights Templar and Their Myth, in the trial of the Templars, one of their main charges was their supposed worship of a heathen idol head known as a Baphomet, being Muhammad. There's a lot more detail that I'm not covering here. Now, St. John of Damascus, in his critique of Islam, says they are also called Saracens, which is derived from Saras Kennoi, or destitute of Sarah, because of what Hagar said to the angel, Sarah hath sent me away destitute. These used to be idolaters, and they worshipped the morning star and Aphrodite, Alilat, whom in their own language they called Khaybar, which means the great, Kabirun, great in size or dignity. Okay? So Sozomen also says that they were descended from Hagar, but called themselves the descendants of Sarah to hide their servile origin. Okay? So understand, so the morning star, this was the symbol here, right? So there's a little bit of history that says the Saracens are Islamic. That's why that term is valuable. Okay? Now, Baphomet, if you look at the Oxford English Dictionary, have you heard of the Oxford English Dictionary? Is that important?
Uh, that's a very normal dictionary, man.
Okay, well, the Oxford English Dictionary says Baphomet, a form of the name Muhammad used by medieval writers, alleged name of the idol which the Templars were accused of worshipping. Great stress in the condemnation of the Templars is laid on the worship of Baphomet. Okay, all their
Wow.
symbols are called Baphometic. That's in the Oxford English Dictionary. Probably not an important book,
Actually,
right?
this dictionary, the new kids would not know that, but anyone who has studies before 19, like before the 2000, century 2000, they would have
Right.
this dictionary in their homes. That's the very standard Oxford
Yeah, it was
dictionary.
the standard English text. It's the major English dictionary. Andrew Martin says the morning star is incorporated into Islam by Muhammad. Now, yeah, there's more to this. I just can't do everything. But Baphomet. Now let's have a look. In Leviticus 17:7, it says they must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. This is to be a lasting ordinance for them and for the generations to come. So it's interesting that we now have this goat idol, and the Bible warns not to offer sacrifices to goat idols. Very, very interesting. Okay, so
Oh,
clearly this goes against God.
so we have Ridwan once again. He always jumps up. Yesterday he ran away in 5 minutes when I asked him, and I gave him the time, but he did not. Instead of bashing everyone, he was not coming to the subject. Let's see if he comes to the subject today. I'll give him the time to
Okay,
speak.
so let's
If he
continue.
does not
So,
comes on the subject, then I will not. So he's here. I'm bringing him up, brother. Let
okay.
him speak. All right, Ridwan, say what you need to say about this topic.
Yeah, first of all, I did not run away yesterday. You did not accept my request. That's why.
You ran away, so please
No, no,
carry
no.
on. Did I
Don't
kick you
argue.
out?
Do
Did I
not
kick you out
argue.
yesterday?
Do not argue. I kicked
Did I
myself
kick you
out because you're
yesterday?
not ready
Okay,
for
so
my
you kick
request.
yourself out.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
means you
yeah.
ran
I
away.
don't have time
Okay, now come to the
for that.
point.
Okay? Don't be lying, man.
Come to the
Yeah,
point.
I just came in. So, what's the topic all about?
Okay, so you did not heard the whole topic, right?
Not really.
So why are you here, brother?
Why are you here?
I'm here to challenge anyone for debate.
Okay, now listen, I'm gonna kick you off now this time. Bye. All right, brother,
Um,
carry on.
okay, so look, the Islamic form of debate, as we discussed before, is called adab al-jadal. Okay, and it is not it's a contest effectively, but it's a method to persuade people. It is not a way of finding truth. Islamic debate is a very specific method. Okay, it is designed to convince, to persuade. It is not to find the truth. Right? This is not its purpose. It is designed to purely attempt to convince, and it uses rhetoric. Now, people tell me, but rhetoric says in the dictionary. I don't care what your dictionary says. We are interested in how Islam defines rhetoric, and rhetoric is defined in Islam as a science, and B, it is utilizing, let's just say, specious arguments that sound good to convince, even if it's not true. Okay, so that's why they want to debate, because they've perfected a method back in the late 8th century. Okay, and by what they call the Jadaliyun. These are people that were paid propagandists who designed and wrote arguments, and they were paid to use sophistry to win arguments, to convince people, just to win arguments. It was a contest. Okay, just so we know, that's why Muslims always want to debate with you. Now, here we've got a different scholar, different set of scholarly works which tell us that. Now, a scholar called Nikolai argued against the identification of the mysterious Baphometus or Baphomet and Mahomet, which implied that the Knights Templar had secretly been converted to Islam and were worshipping a kind of Muslim idol, because that's the standard scholarly concept right now, right? Instead, he was convinced of the Gnostic beliefs of the Knights Templar, and he explained that Gnosticism had emerged from the Kabbalah. Okay, fine and well. However, Islam has its own form of the Kabbalah as well. There's Islamic Kabbalah as well. And two, Islam explicitly claims to be Gnostic. Islam explicitly, within the Sharia, claims to be Gnostic. Okay, they don't hide it. Now, if we look at the Encyclopedia of Occultism, right, by Lewis Spence, this is from the Harvard College Library, it says here that Baphomet is the goat idol of the Templars, okay, and the deity of the sorcerer's Sabbath. Okay, when is the sorcerer's Sabbath? I don't know, it might be Friday for all we know. And the Baphomet was a monstrous head, okay, and an account of a true Baphometic idol is as follows: a pantheistic and magical figure of the absolute, right? And another charge in the narratives of sorcery and magic, another scholar writes, Baphomet, okay, another charge in the accusation of the Templars seems to have been to a great degree proved by the depositions of witnesses. So numerous witnesses, including amongst the Templars themselves, according to the records, stated they were worshipping Muhammad.
Yeah,
Some of the
let's do.
knights, yeah.
Yeah, please carry on
So
first.
go on, sure.
No, please finish that.
So some of the knights from the south added another circumstance in their confessions relating to this head. The Templar of Florence claimed that in the secret meetings, one brother said to the others, showing them the idol, adore this head. This head is your God and your Muhammad. This is the original written record that apparently states this. So this is the head of your God and your Muhammad. They were worshipping Muhammad. Okay. Another one speaks of the figure of Baphomet that was painted. Okay. And adds that he worshipped it by kissing its feet and exclaiming Allah, which he described as a word of the Saracens, which, as you know, the Saracens are the Muslims. So this is a typo. There's a couple of typos in this book. So they would kiss its feet and exclaim Allah. They were kissing Muhammad's feet and calling him Allah. So this has been seized upon by some as proof that the Templars had secretly embraced Mohammedanism. Okay, as the Baphomet is evidently a corruption of Muhammad, and von Hammer gave a Greek derivation of the word and assumed it as proof that the Gnosticism was the secret doctrine of the temple. Again, another link between Gnosticism and Islam from scholars. It's things I need to hunt down these references. So there's every reason to believe in this encyclopedia that there was some foundation for the charges of heresy made against the Templars. So it rendered their Christianity not quite so pure as that of Western Europe, right? It followed the doctrines and rites of the Gnostic Ophites of Islam, Baphomet being a corruption of Muhammad, and they rejected Christianity in favor of a religion based on Gnostic dualism. So understand, they state here that Islam is Gnostic dualism. That claim was already made by scholars, an observation by scholars a long time ago. Islam explicitly in the Sharia claims to be Gnostic. Okay, and they say expressions as regards.
When it comes to this Gnosticism in Islam, we gotta do, not we, you gotta do a live stream. I'll be the listener because I know you have a lot of information about Gnosticism in Islam. So let's do a stream on that as well, brother. And at the same time, let's do a stream with the white magic in Islam, because white magic using the muakkal. What do you call it in English? The word muakkal.
I have no idea.
You were speaking about that word yesterday.
Good grief! I'd have to look it up. I can't remember. I don't know that much about it. I'm still working
using the muakkals to do white magic was very dominant, and it is still happening. And especially this Sayyid Shah, who's from Pakistan, he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then let's do a live stream on that, because the West is ill aware.
I did a talk on Monday with a group of Nigerians, like a church based in Britain. But they said that this is why I spoke about magic in Islam as well. I showed them how many references there are to magic in Islam. It's everywhere. Magic, 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 everywhere in Islam. The occult magic, mysticism, occult magic, everywhere. And they said this explains to them now, they can see why in Africa you have the Jud, right, which is magic, which Muslims in Africa consider perfectly normal. So understand, it says here, it is even possible that the Templars introduced into their rites practices which savored of Gnosticism or Mohammedanism. So now he says that's unlikely, but I can show that that is very likely. Yeah, so understand. So that ends that. I'll stop there. But you can see there are strong links to Islam with the in these various sources. Yeah. So that's it from me. That's my story.
Brother, you're so right on these things, and we're gonna do a live stream on that. And Sayyid Shah, you have been here since the beginning. You might have gone away in the middle, but in the end you were still here. So if you can refute anything today, you are welcome to join in. If you are going to talk about something else, do not join in. So can you refute anything? If yes, the link is already there. CT just shared it one more time. Otherwise, when I go live, join me and place me a point that you are sending left, right, and center in the chat. But right now, can you refute anything that has been shown today? Let's see if he says yes or no. So Mr. Sayyid and Shah, can you refute anything today? I'm asking this specifically because he actually has challenged me, and he said, give me your Skype so I may bury you, inshallah. This is his comment, which was removed by YouTube. So you and I will have a discussion for sure, where I will give you all the chance in the world to bury me with your inshallah with you. But today, one more time, can you refute anything that we spoke about today with evidence. Sayyid Shah, where are you now? What happened to your fingers? Why can't you come up? Or do you need some new fingers to press the buttons now? See, brother, that's how simple it is. And this same guy will actually later on write it in the comments, like the way he's writing in the comments. Now we have given him the link and everything. Now he's not gonna come up.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
Sayyid Shah is saying, on today's topic, I can't because I lack knowledge. At least he is honest enough to admit. So at least, thank you. I respect the honesty. I respect the honesty. Thank you for your honesty. Then why were you trying to change the topic? Next time, if you do not know the topic, do not speak. Okay? If you will speak, it shows that you have no respect for yourself and for the listener, other listeners, and for the speaker. And I know you do not have any respect for me, as you want to bury me. But once again, that's a separate thing. Now, we have shown that all of your scholars were stupid idiot. They did not know the history. They did not know about the Bible. They did not know about the Quran. And they were trying to do left, right, and center. That's what we have shown. Now, gather some knowledge, learn about that why and how your early scholars were these idiots, and then come back some other day. But thank you for being your honesty, and I respect that. All right, guys. Okay, check this out, man. Yes, I'm honest. I never disrespect any Christians because I want them to love Allah. Okay. Once again, you disrespected me, and I have your comment which says you want to bury me. So that's a separate thing, and we will speak together in Urdu at 9 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time in my Urdu channel. If you want to speak in English, let me know. I will open my stream tomorrow. What time is it right now? 1 hour from now. If you want to speak in English, I open it for you tomorrow, 1 hour from now, in English. If you want to speak in Urdu, then I will open it in my Urdu channel on Saturday. So let me know in the description. Now, take care, guys. Thank you so very much. Brother Lloyd, any last words?
No, that's it. So, guys, hopefully in these 2 episodes, you now have the complete picture. You have the most detailed, this is the most detailed information available on the net right now as to why they attacked St. Paul, who attacked St. Paul, what they said. And I will be doing more. I'll be discussing this Injil and how this Injil just conflicts with the Bible and how they were forced to start to come up with these polemics. So yeah, hopefully this gives you an idea why they attacked St. Paul and just how weak these people's arguments are and how easy it should be. If this becomes public, the standard narrative will collapse because the scholars are just frauds. I'll leave it at that.
Amen, brother. You're absolutely right. And that is why they hide these things. And we have to be free with DKK 50. Coffee on me, a sip each. I am having on hold questions. I'm not satisfied with my own what and how to
What and how
answer
to
the.
answer the first? Okay. I'm not quite understanding.
So at least he
Yeah.
has given us money for coffee. A
Awesome.
sip each I am having, which he's having as well, on hold. A question. Now the question I can't understand. I'm not satisfied with my own what and how
What
to
and how
answer.
to answer to the fullest extent of just proper. Okay.
Okay, unfortunately, brother, you have to write the question one more time, a little elaboratively.
Yeah.
I do not know, but thanks for your super chat for coffee. I'm gonna go and get some Starbucks then.
Yeah, Crimson R mentions about the story of the clay birds taken from the Gnostic Gospels, the infancy Gospel of Thomas. I'm actually busy working on a very, very lengthy. I've got enough to make a show with, one show already, but I'm busy going through what I think is the most detailed set of notes showing the how the Islamic stories connect to previous stories. I mean, Jewish stories, children's tales, oddly children's tales, And like the story in the cave is stolen from the Jewish tale about King David, where Muhammad hides in a cave and the spider covers the cave. It happened with King David in a Jewish children's tale, and they just stole it. And the Fatiha and the angel Gabriel, and it's just, man, I'm busy working on that, making very detailed notes on that to show the sources of each of these stories in the Quran. And
So he's
none of them
asking
are
about
original.
he's asking about the child sacrifice in the New Testament or in the Bible. Yes, child sacrifice is there in the Old Testament, but God actually said it's an abomination. They were doing child sacrifice to Moloch, and that is why God asked the people to attack them and imprison them and kill them and destroy them and finish them. So yes, they were doing child sacrifice to their god Moloch in the Old Testament, and you're right, and that is why God wanted them to be destroyed. So yes, in the Old Testament, and Muslims actually pick up those passages and they say, look, your God is so bad, he is so angry God, he destroyed the whole nation. But they don't read the passages before where it says that for 400 years they were burning their child to their god Moloch and doing child sacrifice. And then when the God destroyed them, first God gave them
But he says
prophets
in the
and
New
all.
Testament, yeah, he's talking about the New Testament. And but look, he's just proven he knows the New Testament as well as the very best scholars in Islam.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so very much. I don't think I have read New Testament with somebody saying about the child sacrifice. Maybe somebody might be
Was
referring to the Old Testament. I do not know about the New Testament.
apparently there's jihad in the New Testament according to Quran 9:111. That's there's jihad in the New Testament. We're supposed to kill and be killed. I'm not sure where Jesus made that claim, but hey, whatever.
And then Sayyid Shah is saying, "What are your thoughts on Injil?" Man, what we talking about today? We were just showing about the stupidity of your scholars who doesn't even know about Injil, but Quran mentions it. So maybe next time when you come up, you might get us the where the Injil is, who wrote it, where it is, where it
Where's the
was,
copy of the Injil?
and
Where
where's the
is the
copy of
Injil?
the
Muhammad
Injil which
had it
was.
in his time. Why did the Muslims lose the Injil? The Injil proves the Quran. Where's the Injil? Why did
Perfect.
the Muslims not preserve it? Where is it?
And brother, to be free, Judges is Old Testament, not New Testament, FYI. But thank you for your super chat. Your super chat was good, but your information is not good. Judges is Old Testament, not New Testament, brother.
Yeah, guys, it's 12:30 here for me.
Thank you, brother, for your time, and thank you everyone for watching. To be free, sometime
Okay.
come up live with me, and maybe we can have a reasonable discussion. Thank you so very much for your questions. Thank you so much for your support. God bless you all. Have a blessed day, evening, or night, wherever you are. Yeshua
Akbar
Akbar
Lazim.
al-Azim. Awesome, brother. You know that now. God bless you, everyone.
Dang it. Thanks, guys. Good
Thanks,
night.
guys.
Much appreciated. And please subscribe to my channel, just under my name. Just my name. Look for it on
Amen.
YouTube.
Lloyd
Thanks, guys.
Jongh. Take care, guys. God
Thanks a lot,
bless you.
guys.